the City of Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board. We are residents of Coral
Recording in
Gables.
progress.
We are residents of Coral Gables and are charged with the preservation and protection of historic or architecturally worthy buildings, structure sites, neighborhoods, and artifacts, which impart a distinct historical heritage of the city. The board is comprised of 9 members, 7 of whom are appointed by the commission, 1 by the city manager, and the 9th is selected by the board and confirmed by the commission. 5 members of the board constitute a quorum, and 5 affirmative votes are necessary for the adoption of any motion. Any person who acts as a lobbyist pursuant to the City of Coral Gables Ordinance Number 2006-11 must register with the city clerk prior to engaging in lobbying activities or presentations before city staff, boards, committees, and/or the city commission. A copy of the ordinance is available in the office of the city clerk. Failure to register and provide proof of registration shall prohibit your ability to present to the Historic Preservation Board on applications under consideration this afternoon. A lobbyist is defined as an individual, corporation, partnership, or other illegal entity employed or retained, whether paid or not, by a principal who seeks to encourage the approval, disapproval, adoption, repeal, passage, defeat, or modifications of any ordinance, resolution, action, or decision of any city commissioner, any action, decision, recommendation of the city manager, any city board or committee, including but not limited to quasi-judicial, advisory board, trust authority, or council, or any action, decision, or recommendation of the city personnel during the time period of the entire decision-making process on the action, decision, or recommendation which foreseeably will be heard or reviewed by the city commission or a city board or committee, including but not limited to quasi-judicial, advisory board, trust authority, or council. Presentations made to this board are subject to the city's false claims ordinance, chapter 39 of the City of Coral Gables City Code. I now officially call the City of Coral Gables Historic Preservation Board meeting of August 21st, 2024 to order. The time is 4:10. Present today are, to my left, Ms. Rolando, Ms. Dene, Mr. Maxwell. To my right, Ms. Spain, Mr. Durana, Mr. Banos, and myself, Cesar Garcia Pons. Approval of the minutes. We have 3 different minutes to be approved today. I'm going to call them out individually for a voice vote. Can I get a motion, or does anybody have any comments related to April 17, 2024? Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
A second? Any vote? No?
No.
Okay, motion passes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, nothing. How about June 20th, 2024?
Move to approve.
Motion, Mr. Banos, second.
Second,
Mr. Maxwell, any?
Mr. Boliano.
I move to approve.
You did.
Yeah. Second, Mr. Maxwell.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were looking for the, okay, never, nothing.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 7-0. July 17th, 2024, motion to approve.
Motion.
Mr. Maxwell,
Second.
Mr. Banos, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 7-0. Notice regarding ex parte communications. Please be advised that this board is a quasi-judicial board and the items on the agenda are quasi-judicial in nature, which requires board members to disclose all ex parte communications. Any ex parte communication is defined as any contact, communication, conversation, correspondence, memorandum, or other written or verbal communication that takes place outside a public hearing between a member of the public and a member of the quasi-judicial board regarding matters to be heard by the quasi-judicial board. If anyone has made any contact with a board member when the issue comes before the board, the member must state on the record the existence of the ex parte communication, the party who originated the communication, and whether the communication will affect the board member's ability to impartially consider the evidence to be presented regarding this matter. Does anybody have any ex parte communications they wish to disclose at this time?
No.
Deferrals. Madam Berenas, are there any deferrals for today's meeting?
No.
Thank you, ma'am. Swearing in. If you're going to speak today before the board, if you can stand to be sworn in by staff or the clerk. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Right, I was going to ask, but every time I ask, they say wait till the item. Is there anybody in Zoom that wishes to be sworn in?
Yes, I will be speaking. Luis Consuegra.
We need to have you on camera. Okay,
Hey, and Elizabeth Guin, but I can't, can someone undo my camera?
let's do the gentleman first, and then we'll do Elizabeth. Let's do the gentleman first, and then we'll do Elizabeth. Can you put the gentleman on the screen, please?
Do you see me on the screen?
Yes, please. Would you raise your right hand, please?
We can't hear you.
I cannot hear.
Do you swear or affirm the information you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we need Elizabeth at this time, or can we do it later?
I'm sure that staff even needs to be sworn in.
Okay.
They're the hosts, so they need to let Ms. Gwen open her camera. Please add Elizabeth Gwen as a co-host. CGTV.
Mr. Chair, why don't you move it along and then when
I just asked, and I was told to wait.
Okay.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the information you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to start with the first item unless there's any reason not to. Mr. Maxwell?
We have a change, request for a change in the agenda.
Sure.
Vice Mayor Rhonda Anderson has made a request to make a brief presentation to update this board on the City Hall project.
Is Ms. Anderson here?
She's right outside. Thank you.
Welcome, Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Sorry, I went to use the ladies' room.
That was quick. That was quick.
It was quick, yes. But I didn't want to trouble you guys too much, but I did feel that I need to share with you some of the most recent information we just received on City Hall structural issues and why I've taken some of the positions that I've taken, trying to make sure that we take care of the infrastructure budget-wise.
Sure.
So-
If you could speak into the mic, ma'am. I'm sorry, it's a little. Thank you so much.
It's a little low.
Appreciate
it. Not a problem. So I'll repeat. I wanted to make you all aware, being historic preservation, some of the most recent information we received regarding City Hall, and it will explain some of the positions that I've taken as far as where we need to put the money in the budget. And I'm going to share the report with you, and it's self-explanatory. It's dated July 30th, and I didn't get it until about August 7th, but anyway, I'll hand out copies to you all, and hopefully we can work through this issue together and make sure we take care of this building of ours that's a gem. Okay? That's it. I just wanted to share it with you.
So we're just going to read it and come back, ask you any questions?
Well, we'll have more meetings. I'm sure we're going to have more meetings on this because you all have to see, the plan and what we want to do with City Hall. We need engineering drawings, we need architectural drawings, we need to establish a plan for as I call it, making sure the bones of this building are intact. And then we can proceed to take care of the more decorative features on the building itself. So I think it's self-explanatory that we need to move forward. Okay?
Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. You can come by any time if your presentation is going to be that short.
Hey, thank you. That's a hint to the rest of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you.
All right, so we have this information. We'll take a look at it, maybe have it on an agenda item for next meeting. But thank you for bringing it over. Great, so we're going to start with the agenda that we have before us today, which is the first item is case file LHD 2024-008, consideration of the local historic designation of the property at 1144 Milan Avenue, legally described as Lot 3 and the east 10 feet of Lot 2, Block 26, Coral Gables, Granada section revised according to the plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 8 at page 113 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida. Madam Paredes.
CJTV, the presentation, please.
The property at 1144 Milan Avenue is before you for consideration for designation as a local historic landmark. The application was submitted by the owner at the request of the Board of Architects. The single-family home was designed in 1923 by Martin Hampton. As per Article 8, Section 8-103 of the Coral Gables Zoning Code, Criteria for Designation of Historic Landmarks, a local historic landmark must have significant character, interest, or value as part of a historical, cultural, archaeological, aesthetic, or architectural heritage of the city, state, or nation. For designation, a property must meet one of the criteria outlined in the code. 1144 Milan Avenue is eligible as a local historic landmark based on 3 criteria. Historical cultural significance, criteria 4. It exemplifies the historical, cultural, political, economic, or social trends of the community. Architectural significance, criteria 1. It portrays the environment in an era of history characterized by one or more distinctive architectural style. Criteria 2. It embodies those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style or period or method of construction. The property at 1144 Milan Avenue sits on a 60 by 104 lot in the Granada section. On the property are a single-family home and a detached garage, both permitted in 1923, and they retain their original style and character. Coral Gables was originally conceived as a suburb of Miami and attracted investors from across the nation during the South Florida real estate boom of the 1920s. Merrick drew from the Garden City and City Beautiful movements of the 19th and early 20th century to create his vision for a fully conceived Mediterranean-inspired city, which is now considered one of the first modern planned communities in the United States. The city's developmental history is divided into 3 major historical periods. During the initial developmental period, architectural design specifically combined elements commonly used in Spanish, Moorish, and Italian architecture. The home at 1144 Milan Avenue was commissioned by Coral Gables founder George Merrick and designed by Martin Hampton, a member of his design team. It espouses Merrick's Mediterranean ideals and is a very early example of what are now known as the Coral Gables cottages. The 1921 map on the left shows the layout of Coral Gables when the first lots went on sale in November of 1921. Initial sales were in the direct vicinity of Merrick's homestead in Section A, circled here in red. Sales were very successful, and the remainder of the land was divided into sections B through I, as seen on the map on the right, and offered for sale through 1922. As sales took off, Merrick looked to expand his land holdings. Records indicate he expended a tremendous amount of time extending his holdings north to the Tamiami Trail in the area highlighted in purple. Note that he initially only held lots on either side of Granada Boulevard, denoted as Section F. By fall 1923, Section F, which is highlighted here in green, was significantly expanded. Merrick renamed this area the Granada section and directed hundreds of workers to lay street sidewalks and water mains. Milan Avenue was the southern border of this section and is the red line on this plat map. In the Granada section, Merrick began to develop streetscapes following Garden City precepts. Unlike earlier sections, it was platted with large areas allocated for smaller, moderately priced homes. To showcase his vision, Merrick commissioned architects H. George Fink, Martin Hampton, and Louis Brum to design 58 Mediterranean-inspired homes to demonstrate that though smaller, the moderately priced homes in Coral Gables would have the same quality of construction and aesthetics as the larger homes. In the Granada section, Merrick stated that these 58 homes would, quote, embody new and radical departures from the usual type of small house designing, with compactness, beauty, and comfort that will appeal to smaller families. Each home will be a differently finely detailed design, end quote. Their distribution of the 58 homes was 12 on Ferdinand Street, 18 on Genoa Street, 8 on Milan Avenue, 6 on Capri Street, and 14 on Pizarro Avenue. These one-story homes were the first of what would later be classified as Coral Gables cottages. The 8 homes on Milan Avenue commissioned by George Merrick are shown here by the red blocks. 1144 Milan Avenue was one of these homes and is denoted by the orange arrow. As intended, these homes provided a model for and sparked interest in developing Milan Avenue with moderately priced homes. The blue blocks here are the other homes on the street, built afterwards in the 1920s. Milan Avenue retains this historic context to date. Developing these streets was a source of pride for Merrick. In 1925, he stated, "Frequently at night, Mrs. Merrick and I drive through Coral Gables. We go into the moderate price sections, and we find something which gives me even more pride in the accomplishment of an ideal. People who formerly used stock plans can now have a well-appointed home. It's gratifying to see the difference in the attractiveness of one of our very moderately priced homes as compared to a house of similar cost in the unrestricted section of Miami." The home at 1144 Milan Avenue was one of the earliest Coral Gables cottages, and it played a significant role in the development of this typology in the city. Merrick chose to develop Coral Gables as a Mediterranean-inspired city because he felt that this type of architecture harmonized best with South Florida's climate and lifestyle. Merrick also encouraged and partially funded his team's tours to Europe to study Mediterranean architecture and bring back drawings and new insights on South Florida adaptations. During the late summer 1923, Martin Hampton spent several weeks on such a tour, and the home at 1144 Milan Avenue was one of his first designs after returning. The home includes many additional prominent and character-defining features of the Mediterranean Revival style, which include but are not limited to those shown here. Of particular note is the Pecky Cypress roof ensemble and its two-piece barrel tile, the decorative front parapet, and the shoulder chimney stack. The one-story house is built of masonry block units covered with a textured stucco. A smooth-faced, slightly protruding masonry base wraps around the home enclosing its crawl space. The living space is under a flat roof with parapets of varying heights. The parapet copings are simple curves, and periodically a canale-inspired recess is cut out. The windows throughout the home are recessed with protruding sills. The windows were originally casements, changed to jalousies in the 1950s, and to the current awning windows in 1982. The 1982 permit specifies that there were no changes to the size or placement of the windows. Round vents decoratively arranged in triangles are above many of the windows on the side facades. The front facade is comprised of a projecting living space bay, a recessed covered front porch, and an extended wing wall. The wing wall visually extends to the porch stairs. At each end of the wall is terminated by a bookend pier. Another narrow wing wall projects at the rear of the porch. The protruding living space at the eastern end of the facade is punctuated with a centered, simple permanent parapet. It's recessed slightly from the running parapet, which is cut out to form a negative image of the pediment. At the western end of the front facade is the entry porch and its shed roof ensemble, which is a hallmark feature of the home. The porch roof is supported by cypress rafters, whose ends are decoratively carved and project beyond the roof. A cypress lintel is likewise elegantly carved with a bracket against the wall at its eastern end and a decoratively carved tail at the open western end. The underside of the lintel is carved with undulating manner, and a series of molded drop balls are attached periodically across its span. The open end is enclosed by a barge board-inspired feature. The vertical cypress boards have carved ends, and between some of the boards are small diamond cutouts. The porch roof is clad in two-piece barrel tile. The ensemble was originally supported by a carved spindle post. There was also a spindle railing along the western end of the porch. Hampton provided a detail of them in the original permit. These elements are replaced with metal elements at an unknown date. Also added was the curved metal step railing. Originally, another cypress detail adorned the front facade and complemented the porch feature. Centered below the pediment is a double window. The window originally had a carved wood cypress surround, as seen in the historic 1940s photo on the left. It appears it was removed and perhaps partially stuccoed over in the 1950s when the casement windows were replaced with the jalousies. The outline of the feature is still visible in the stucco as seen here on the right. Rising above the parapet near the porch on the west facade is a prominent projecting chimney stack. It has two distinctive shoulders, the first on its northern side aligning with the top of the windows, and a second on the south side rising above the parapet. As seen here, the west facade retains its original configuration, including the connecting garden wall to the garage. It should be noted that during this era in Coral Gables, it was not unusual for some features to be changed during construction. In this home, the use of square vents in the cross formation was changed to circular vents in a triangular formation, and the placement of the chimney shoulders was flipped. The home has two small infill additions, one at the rear terrace, shown in blue, and another protruding at the center of the east facade, shown in yellow. Both have flat roofs with no parapets, which aids in distinguishing them as additions, and the parapets of the original home are still clearly delineate the original footprint of the home. The difference in stucco texture also clearly demarks the additions. No permits have been located to date for them. However, by early 1940s, there were newspaper ads for a room, bath, and living room with a separate entrance. Hence, by this time, it's likely that the sleeping porch had been enclosed for a bedroom, and the rear addition was in place with its separate entry stair. At the southwest corner of the property is the original detached garage. The doors were initially carriage doors and were changed prior to 1980. A permit for the work has not been found to date. As seen in the original permit, a garden wall with a gate ran between the northeast corner of the garage and the southwest corner of the house. While the gate and some of the wall is no longer extant, a portion of the wall still exists at both corners. In conclusion, the single-family home at 1144 Milan Avenue was one of 8 homes commissioned by city founder George Merrick in 1923. In accordance with Garden City precepts that guided Merrick's development of Coral Gables, he platted smaller lots on some streets in the New Granada section intended for modest homes. Merrick envisioned Milan Avenue as a street of moderately priced, attractive homes. He commissioned 3 members of his design team to demonstrate that these smaller homes be built with the same high-quality construction and Mediterranean Revival-style features as other structures that shaped the new city in the early 1920s. The houses on the street are amongst the earliest of what are now known as the Coral Gables Cottage, and they played a significant role in the development of this genre in the city. In 1993, the City of Coral Gables passed the Coral Gables Cottage Ordinance to recognize the importance of the cottages and offered zoning incentives to aid in their preservation. The home at 1144 Milan Avenue was designed in the Mediterranean Revival style by architect Martin Hampton. In the summer 1923, Merrick sent him on a European tour to study Mediterranean architecture and bring back drawings and new insights. The home at 1144 Milan Avenue was one of his first designs after returning. The details of the home, such as the porch roof ensemble and the chimney shoulders, demonstrate a new architectural vocabulary to the evolving Mediterranean Revival style in Coral Gables. Hence, the property at 1144 Milan Avenue significantly contributes to the historic fabric of the city of Coral Gables, and staff recommends approval of its local historic designation based on its historical, cultural, and architectural significance.
Thank you. Anything else from staff?
Elizabeth on the screen, please. She needs to provide a statement.
Hello again. Elizabeth Ewan, the Historic Preservation Coordinator, and just for the record, this presentation was a brief summary of the historic designation report that was prepared by staff.
Thank you. Is that it? Ms. Benas, I know that we received a number of letters of support. Can you state who they're from and what projects they're from? I'll give you a minute while we sort of ask. Is there anybody from the ownership group here that wishes to speak? You don't have to.
I don't see them, but this was submitted by the property owner. We do have letters of support, and all the public comment that was received in advance of the meeting was distributed to the members. Nothing was received after that this morning. We have letters from Jamie and Zuli Pardo, Maribel Biamon, Alice Goldhagen, this is not this one, Mr. Brett Gillis.
And they're all in support.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Historic Preservation Association of Coral Gables. Sorry, I had them all together. And that is all that I have for this address.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for staff? If not, I'll go to public comment and then come back.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry. I apologize. Was this already designated as a Coral Gables cottage early on? Okay.
We can't see you shaking your heads.
No, it was
Okay.
not.
Thank you.
With the indulgence of the chair, I would like to move to approve.
No.
Oh, no, okay.
Public comment, then I'll bring it back.
Oh, public
Any
comment.
questions for staff? Okay, opening it for public comment. Does anybody wish to speak in favor or opposition of this case? Closing public comment, bringing it back to the board. Happy to entertain any discussion or a motion, and if you're going to make a motion, please be specific.
Sure. So I would like to move to approve the local historic designation of the property at 1144 Milan Avenue, legally described as Lot 3 on the east 10 feet of the Lot 2, Block 26, Coral Gables, Granada section revised, based on historic, cultural, and architectural significance, incorporating by reference the staff's report, the presentation made today, as well as all the public letters that received in support.
Can I ask you, do you agree with the three criterion as selected by staff, criterion 4, 1, and 2?
Incorporating my agreement and the agreement of the board with the criteria outlined as A, historic cultural significance. Criteria 4 exemplifies the historical, cultural, political, economic, and social trends of the community. B, architectural significance. Criteria 1 portrays the environment in an area of history characterized by one or more distinctive architectural styles. And criterion 2 embodies those the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style or period or method of construction.
Thank you, Mr. Banos. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ms.
Second by Ms. Rolando. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
I really think that, Martin Luther Hampton was one of the most significant architects in all of South Florida. He designed many of the most significant buildings. I think one of the criteria should be, going forward, and it should be stated as a criteria that by an architect of significance.
Yes, but that's not one of the criteria.
I understand.
We've run into issues in the past with that because the criteria state is an outstanding example of a significant architect. And so we just need to be careful on what we consider outstanding. I would agree with you on his caliber of architects, but I'm not sure that this is necessarily one of his outstanding pieces of work.
If we lose any more of these, it will be.
So is there a friendly amendment, or are you just making
No,
a statement?
just a
Okay,
comment.
thank you, Mr. Maxwell. I'd also like to say that wood window surround on that front elevation made all the difference. And I hope whoever renovates this house, it makes all the difference. So I found it to be very attractive. Great, we have a motion and a second. Can we call the roll, please?
Mr. Durana,
Yes.
Ms. Dene,
Yes.
Ms. Spain,
Yes.
Ms. Rolando,
Yes.
Mr. Banos,
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia Pons.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Next item, case file LHD 2024-006, consideration of the local historic designation of the property at 3920 Durango Street, legally described as Lot 6, Block 46, Coral Gables Country Club, Section Part 3, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 10 at page 52 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida. Coral Gables TV, please. You can load the next presentation.
The property at 3920 Durango Street is before you for consideration for designation as a local historic landmark. The designation is at the request of the owner. In July 2023, there was a fire on the second story of the home. It was declared not fit for habitation and has been vacant since. The current owner purchased the property in September 2023 with the intention of restoring and adding to the house. As per Article 8, Section 8-103 of the Coral Gables Zoning Code, criteria for designation of historic landmarks, a local historic landmark must have significant character, interest, or value as part of the historical, cultural, archaeological, aesthetic, or architectural heritage of the city, state, or nation. For designation, a property must meet one of the criteria outlined in the code. 3920 Durango Street is eligible as a local historic landmark based on 3 criteria. Historical cultural significance, criteria 4. It exemplifies the historical, cultural, political, economic, or social trends of the community. Architectural significance, criteria 1. It portrays the environment in an era of history characterized by one or more distinctive architectural style. And criteria 2. It embodies those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style or period or method of construction. 3920 Durango Street is in Coral Gables Country Club Section Part 3. It is located just north of the intersection of University Drive and Bird Road, east of the Boatmark Golf Course. It sits on an interior 50-foot by 110-foot lot, which includes a single-family residence and a detached auxiliary building. It has retained its original style and character. George Merrick founded Coral Gables in the early 1920s based on his vision for a fully conceived Mediterranean-inspired city. The city's developmental history is divided into three major historical periods. During the initial developmental period, architectural design specifically combined elements commonly used in Spanish, Moorish, and Italian architecture, and has come to be known as the Mediterranean Revival style. During the 1920s, structures and amenities were built almost exclusively in accordance with this style. The construction of this home at 3920 Durango Street occurred during this initial phase, simultaneous to the incorporation of the city. Nationally acclaimed landscape architect Frank Button drew the first comprehensive maps of Coral Gables in 1921 and 22, one of which is on the left of this slide. In the mid-1920s, Merrick announced plans for a premier hotel and golf course. At this time, sections G, H, and I, which were primarily undeveloped, were reworked to accommodate the large $10 million Biltmore Hotel complex. These three sections were divided into 6 and renamed Country Club sections Part 1 through 6, as seen here. Also, scenic boulevards were added, such as Ocean Beach Drive, which was later renamed University Drive. The home at 3920 Durango Street was built in this area in Country Club Section Part 3, which is outlined here in blue. With the unbridled Florida land boom, the influx of new residents and winter visitors resulted in a housing shortage in South Florida by the mid-1920s. As Coral Gables grew exponentially, so did its workforce, and the construction of homes in Coral Gables could not keep pace. This, coupled with the acute housing shortage in the region, presented a challenge which by 1925, Merrick was trying to meet head-on. Merrick began a multi-pronged approach to the issue. He provided temporary housing in the form of Tent City, as seen in the photo on the upper left. He commissioned the San Sebastian Apartment Hotel for employees and their families, and he reached out to M.L. Rauschenberg, an Atlantic builder and a close personal friend, who agreed to build 10 apartment buildings in the Douglas section, which would accommodate 128 families. Merrick also wanted to provide the option of single-family homes. As a result of his trip to Atlanta to broker the deal with Rauschenberg, Merrick's investment opportunity and needs came to the attention of Lindsay Hopkins and Herbert Nichols. Lindsay Hopkins, who is pictured here, was a nationally acclaimed investor. He was the director of the Coca-Cola Company, the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, and the Reynolds Metal Company. He was also intensely interested in aviation, automobiles, and road development, and real estate, all passions shared by Merrick. But probably most important to Merrick was that Hopkins, with his partner Herbert Nichols, a prominent builder, were responsible for most of the homes in Druid Hills. Druid Hills, an exclusive suburb of Atlanta, was initially planned by the premier landscape architect Frederick Law Olmsted in 1893. In 1908, it was sold to Asa Candler, the president of Coca-Cola, and developed in large part by Hopkins and Nichols between 1910 and 1936. Druid Hills is now listed on the National Register for Historic Places. This was one of several high-profile and successful endeavors Hopkins and Nichols undertook under their builder's finance and mortgage company. Hopkins and Nichols approached Merrick in early 1925 with a large building program. It was to include the construction of 500 single-family homes. At this time, Merrick had several criteria he was asking potential investors to demonstrate. They had to show the ready capital and an understanding of his vision for the city. They also had to have experience in building at a large scale in a planned community, as well as the ability to mobilize quickly and independently of construction currently underway in Coral Gables. To meet this last requirement, Hopkins shipped 10 railway carloads of building materials and submitted plans to build a concrete plant in Coral Gables. Thus, in April 1925, with the purchase of the first 50 lots and the submission of architectural drawings, a contract was issued and the plan was announced. These 50 lots were purchased in undeveloped sections. 30 of the homes were concentrated in the Coconut Grove section, just south of the planned San Sebastian Apartment Hotel, which broke ground a few months later, and the other 20 were scattered over Country Club sections Part 3, 4, and 5, which wrap around the southern portion of the Miami-Biltmore Golf Course, which was then under construction. These 50 homes were designed either by architects H. George Fink or Frank Wyatt Woods, who were both members of Merrick's design team. As agreed, some of the homes were moderately priced for working families. The permit for 3920 Durango Street was approved in early June 1925, along with 6 other Hopkins Nichols homes in the Country Club section Part 3. The permit book records it as Permit 1204. However, while the drawings of the homes for the other 6 permits match what was built, the plans associated with 1204 do not. The most likely explanation relates to the permitting process at the time. Coral Gables was incorporated in April of 1925 and began officially permitting plans in August. Prior to this, Merrick's Coral Gables Corporation approved plans and tracked them by legal addresses. In August, the city began assigning permit numbers, and they asked that all architects and builders who had constructed buildings in the city submit the approved plans. The city then retroactively assigned permit numbers. Since Nichols was submitting over 70 plans at the time, it's possible that the plans for the home at 3920 Durango Street were switched with another Nichols home. Research is ongoing to determine if this was the case. Even without the original plans, it's clear that the home was built in late 1925, contemporaneous to the other 6 Nichols homes. In early January 1926, newspapers report the first owners of 3920 Durango Street, Daniel and Susan Redfern, had moved in. Newspapers also confirm that the home was built under the Hopkins-Nichols contract, as it records the title transfer from the Builders Finance and Mortgage Company to the Redferns a few months later. The first 50 homes of the Hopkins-Nichols contract were designed either by H. George Fink or by Frank Wyatt Woods. While both architects were designing in the Mediterranean Revival style, they had distinct interpretations, with Fink leaning more towards Spanish and Moorish precedents, and Woods leaning towards the Italian. Thus, it is often clear who designed which home. In the case of 3920 Durango Street, the features in the massing are in keeping with Fink's design. Furthermore, it is very similar to another home he designed for the Hopkins-Nichols contract that was built in the Coconut Grove section at 318 Eliseo Avenue. The Eliseo home has the same massing and layout, as well as similar features to 3920 Durango Street. Hence, staff is comfortable in attributing the design of the home at 3920 Durango Street to H. George Fink. 3920 Durango Street is a 1- and 2-story residence with a detached garage building built in the Mediterranean Revival style. This slide lists some of its character-defining features. Of particular note are the textured stucco, the front entry classical coin surround and swooped hood ensemble, and its vertical plank front door, the prominent bell tower-inspired chimney, the low-pitched roofs clad in 2-piece barrel tile, its wing walls, as well as the porte-cochere with crenellated parapets, barrel tile copings, and masonry lintels over its openings. The single-family residence, constructed with masonry block units, is built over a crawl space and clad with textured stucco. At the northeast corner of the home rises to 2 stories under a hipped roof. The roof pitch is shallow with minimal overhang and until recently was clad in 2-piece barrel tile. Apart from the front shed-roofed Florida room, the remainder of the living space is under a 1-story flat roof whose parapets have simple copings. The original windows throughout the home were casements in a divided light configuration with high-profile muttons and protruding sills. Permits for the change in window type have not been located to date. In reviewing historic photos, it is discerned that by 1977, the Florida room was enclosed with awning windows, and the current single-hung windows were installed throughout the home between 1980 and 2006. The asymmetrical front facade has at its core a two-story portion of the home. Extending from it to the south is the one-story Florida room, and to its north, the porte cochere. At the front corners of the porte cochere on the Florida room, simple-footed wing walls flare out. One hallmark feature of the home is the front entry. The front door appears to be original to the home. It's a vertical plank door with a diamond cutout window. Embellishing the entry is a masonry coin surround and a swooped hood. The hood and the surround have a smooth texture with contrast with the textured stucco of the home. The masonry lintels of the porte cochere openings and the protruding sills of the home are also smooth in texture and provide visual links. Also note the crenellated parapets of the porte cochere with the two-piece barrel tile in its valleys. Another hallmark feature is the large chimney rising through the porte cochere along the north facade. In a nod to Spanish colonial architecture, it is reminiscent of the belfry. As seen in the historic photo on the right, there was originally a finial cap feature that also had a smooth texture. It was damaged in a windstorm in 1996 and not replaced. On the front facade, until recently, there was a metal window box holder below the center second-story window. In keeping with the Spanish colonial influences, the ornamentation of the remainder of the home is simpler, with the entry as the prime focus. Along the north side of the home, running behind the porte cochere to the garage auxiliary building, is a wood deck and trellis. A pair of French doors lead out onto it from the dining room. At the rear of the home, the original back porch area and its bay is retained. At the northwest corner of the property is the garage auxiliary building. As early as 1930, newspaper ads and city directories document that there were servants' quarters attached to the garage. By 1944, the space was being rented out and remained a rental unit for decades. At an unknown date, the garage door opening was enclosed and is now listed as a guest house. Some of the alterations to the front facade of the structure are obvious from the stucco pattern. The original floor plan from 318 Alicio Avenue is shown on the right here, with the current plan from this home. The layout and the siting of the auxiliary building and its loggia connection to the servants' quarters to the home is likely similar to the original plan for this home. Certain aspects of the current front facade suggest that it may have been altered early in its history. Note that the windowsill on the southern window on the second story is slightly lower than its counterparts. Also note that the shed roof over the Florida room is truncated halfway over the second window. Fink designed hundreds of homes in Coral Gables in the 1920s, and the overall impression of these elements is not wholly characteristic of his designs. A closer examination reveals a distinct line and change in stucco at the southeast corner of the second story. A comparison of this home to the very similar home designed by Fink at 318 Alicio Avenue may yield the answer. In the Alicio home, both the front and the back corner of the second story above the Florida room and the porch area are notched, resulting in a protruding stair hall bay. Currently, in this home, only the rear corner is notched. The location of the stucco changes, however, suggests the front corner was also originally notched. The earliest historic photo of this home found to date dates to the early 1940s. The alteration, if it occurred, predates this photo. Note that the stucco line and change are present in the early photo. A permit was granted in September 1936 for general repairs to the home. The plans or the work description has not been located to date. However, it fits the time frame for the alteration. It is staff's opinion that the front facade was probably more in line with 318 Alicio Avenue, and the southeast corner of the home was built out. Since the home is about to undergo restoration of the second story as a result of the recent fire, there may be an opportunity to verify and document it. 3920 Durango Street remains as one of approximately 100 homes built by Nichols and Hopkins. After the 1926 hurricane, due to the declining economy, amongst other national issues, Hopkins and Nichols reduced their contract with Merrick. In return, Hopkins provided the final necessary financing for the San Sebastian, and eventually he purchased it in 1928. As you can see in these early aerial photos, the home at 3920 Durango Street was one of the few Mediterranean Revival homes built in this area of the city, and it stands as a testament to Merrick's vision for Coral Gables. Hence, the property exemplifies the historical, cultural, political, economic, and social trends of the initial development of the history of this community. In conclusion, the single-family residence at 3920 Durango Avenue, constructed in 1925 and in the Mediterranean Revival style, exemplifies the Mediterranean ideals espoused by city founder George Merrick and is indicative of the type of architecture that was the founding premise of Coral Gables. Financed and construction by nationally acclaimed team of Lindsay Hopkins and H.W. Nichols, it represents an integral piece of how Merrick developed Coral Gables. The home is one of a handful of the homes built in this initial phase in Country Club Section Part 3, and is part of a collection of quality buildings that serves as a visible reminder of the history and the cultural heritage of the city. The property at 3920 Durango Street retains its architectural integrity and significantly contributes to the historic fabric of the city of Coral Gables. Hence, staff recommends approval of the local historic designation of the property at 3920 Durango Street based on its historical, cultural, and architectural significance.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Do you have a statement to make in addition to the presentation?
Yes, I do. Elizabeth Gillen, Historic Preservation Coordinator, and just for the record again, this presentation is a brief summary of the historic designation report that was prepared by staff.
Thank you. Anything additional by staff? Is the owner of the property here and/or wish to speak? You don't have to. Great, okay. Ms. Benos, can I have the letters of recommendation? Or, excuse me, the public comment?
Public comment received in support of the designation was by Jamie and Zuli Pardo. I can't even read my own handwriting now. Ms. Biamon, Elise Goldhagen, Mr. Brett Gillis, and the Corella Carbonell on behalf of the HPACG.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Well, I do.
Mr. Baños.
Just briefly. Given, compared to the Milan property that we just decided a little while ago, okay? This one perhaps because the permitting, it's not, you don't have the plans and things like that, and you lost the permit. If the board decides to approve, is there any additional language that should be referenced in order to make sure that if there's any future question as to the designation, that is covered?
So this designation actually came about because the new property owner who purchased it was kind of seeing what they can do with the property. The property has significant fire damage right now. So I walked through the property with her and her architect to kind of explain the incentives of historic designation. And she has been working with the architect to go do a restoration of the house and an addition at the rear. So that'll be coming before you in the next few weeks. It did go to BOA last week, I believe. Last week, and was deferred with comments. So they're already implementing a lot of the designation and restoration work that we would like to see. And they've been working with us.
So no additional language?
Nothing within the designation criteria that you need to add.
Thank you, Mr. Baños. Any other additional questions for staff? Okay, let me open it to public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak in favor or in opposition to this case? Hearing none, closing public hearing, bringing it back to the board. Any discussion amongst yourselves or entertaining a motion?
I would like to make a motion with the indulgence of the chair to approve the local historic designation on the property at 3920 Durango Street, legally described as Lot 6, Block 46, Coral Gables Country Club, Section Part 3, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in the Plat Book 10 of page 52 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida, based on historic, cultural, and architectural significance, incorporating by reference the staff's report, the presentation made during the meeting, along with the commentary in support, all commentary that was received by staff. I'm further outlining that the reasoning is that the property meets several criteria, specifically A, historical cultural significance. Criterion 4, exemplifies historical, cultural, political, economic, and social trends of the community. B, architectural significance. Criterion 1, portrays the environment and area of historic characterization by one or more distinctive architectural styles. Criterion 2, embodies those distinguishing characteristics of architectural style or period or method of construction.
Thank you, Mr. Banos. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Durano. Any discussion, amongst the board members? Okay, none. Let's call the roll.
Okay, Ms. Deney,
Yes.
Ms. Rolando,
Yes.
Ms. Spain,
Yes.
Mr. Durana,
Yes.
Mr. Banos,
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia Pons.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Thank you. I'm going to read the next item in, case file LHD 2024-007 and COA SP 2024-023, consideration of the local historic designation of the property at 4722 Alhambra Circle, legally described as Lot 11 and 12, Block 79, Coral Gables Country Club, Section Part 5, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 23 at page 55 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida. The applicant is also requesting the issuance of an accelerated special certificate of appropriateness and design approval for the demolition of the original auxiliary structure, additions to the residence and site work. Ms. Quinn, do you need to make a statement before the presentation?
Surely. Hello again. Elizabeth Guillaume, Historic Preservation Coordinator, and the following presentation is a brief summary of the Historic Designation Report prepared by staff.
Thank you. Can we get the presentation?
Mr. Chair, before we begin the presentation, if I may make a brief comment.
Please.
I just want to be clear that we're considering two items here today, the designation and the accelerated COA. If it's all right with you, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that we do the designation first, have a motion on that, and then have a separate presentation on the COA. After that, separate public comments, separate presentations, et cetera, just for the record.
That'll be great. Let's do it.
Thank you. I think we're ready for the presentation now.
CGTV
has it.
The property at 4722 Alhambra Circle, historically known as 4722 Ferdinand Street, is before you for consideration for designation as a local historic landmark. This designation is before you as a result of a historic significance determination application filed by the owner. As per Article 8, Section 8-103 of the Coral Gables Zoning Code, criteria for designation of historic landmarks, a local historic landmark must have significant character, interest, or value as part of the historical, cultural, archaeological, aesthetic, or architectural heritage of the city, state, or nation. For designation, a property must meet one of the criteria outlined in the code. 4722 Alhambra Circle is eligible as a local historic landmark based on three criteria. Historical cultural significance, criteria 4. It exemplifies the historical, cultural, political, economic, or social trends of the community. Architectural significance, criteria 1. It portrays the environment and era of history characterized by one or more distinctive architectural style. And criteria 2, it embodies those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style or period or method of construction. The property at 4722 Alhambra Circle is a 100-foot by 105-foot corner lot in Country Club Section Part 5. On the property are a single-family home and attached garage, both permanent in 1925. There have been no additions to the structures, and they retain their original style and character. George Merrick founded Coral Gables during the South Florida real estate boom of the 1920s. Merrick drew from Garden City and City Beautiful movements of the 19th and early 20th century to create his vision for a fully conceived Mediterranean-inspired city, which is now considered one of the first modern planned communities in the United States. Nationally acclaimed landscape architect Frank Button drew the first comprehensive maps of Coral Gables in 1921 and 22. During the early 1920s, sales were highly successful, and Merrick continued to substantially increase his land holdings. In March 1925, Merrick announced the purchase of 6,000 acres along Biscayne Bay. It included the Cocoa Plum Beach property from James and Charles Deering, and it was to house the University of Miami, an extensive waterway system, a high school, and recreational amenities. Merrick named it the Riviera section. During this time, lot and home sales were booming, and Merrick's vision for Coral Gables continued to expand. Likewise, Merrick's workforce also grew. Crews were needed to clear the land, build the structures, lay the streets and sidewalks, as well as create some of the larger ventures such as the Biltmore Hotel and Golf Course seen here under construction in the photo on the right. And of course, there was the sales force and the office staff who are pictured here in a 1923 photograph. By the mid-1920s, the available housing could not keep pace with the demand in both Coral Gables and throughout South Florida. By 1925, Merrick began a multi-pronged approach to this issue. He provided temporary housing in the form of Tent City, as seen here in the photo on the upper left. He commissioned the San Sebastian Apartments, and he began to invite investors to work with his own Coral Gables Corporation, who could provide their own construction management and quickly mobilize. The ad at the bottom of the slide, posted in June 1925, was specifically for investors for the new Riviera section. George Merrick always dreamed big, and he found a kindred spirit in Myers Cooper. On August 2, 1925, Merrick announced a $75 million contract with Cooper to expand the architectural vocabulary of Coral Gables in a controlled and exciting manner. From Ohio, Cooper was a financier and the head of a well-established construction company in Cincinnati. To finance this endeavor, he spearheaded the formation of the American Building Corporation, which was comprised of a group of Cincinnati capitalists. In August 1925, a full-page ad in the Miami Herald entitled "A Riviera House" explained their plans for this new section. Merrick described the early Mediterranean-inspired homes of Coral Gables as initially heavily influenced by Spanish prototypes, which evolved to include Moorish, Italian, and French precedents. And likewise, the Riviera section would evolve too. He asserted that while Coral Gables would remain a primarily Mediterranean-inspired city, the new Riviera section would have contained zones or village-type groupings where new distinctive international styles would be produced. It was later dubbed the Village Project. Due to a combination of factors, the Village Project was never completed. However, a number of the distinct groupings were started. 7 of these villages are now designated as historic districts. Merrick's vision for the Riviera section was that it was to have a different vibe from sections north of Bird Road. Initially, all the villages were to be in the Riviera section. Another prong of the American Building Corporation contract was that there was to be an area that showcased a variety of Italian-inspired style homes. This area, as circled in red on the left, comprised of Country Club Section Part 5 and Riviera Section Part 1. As discussed in the designation report, these included homes inspired by Italian country villas, Venetian country and canal houses, and Italian farmhouses. The first homes contracted for the American Building Corporation project were designed by architect Frank Wyatt Woods. He was to produce homes inspired by the Italian country houses. These homes blended with the Mediterranean revival style of the city and exhibited Italian-inspired hallmark features such as a combination of one room wide 1 and 2 story sections with intersecting pitched roof angles arranged in an L-shaped plan. Additional features included slender chimneys with decorative caps, series of arch openings, barrel tile roofs, and exterior staircases. These homes had 25-foot front setbacks, and they were surrounded by perimeter walls, typical of Italian country houses, and featured a formal garden, as seen in the plot plan shown here. Note the plot plan at the top is for the home at 4722 Alhambra Circle. There were 5 built along Ferdinand Street, which is now called Alhambra Circle, and 4722 Alhambra Circle was amongst this cadre. They are shown under construction in April 1926 on the left. The drawings for 4722 Alhambra Circle are dated August 25, 1925, just weeks after the contract was announced. On October 24, 1925, the American Building Corporation filed its first 12 permits. Among them were 3 of these Italian-inspired homes by Woods along Alhambra Circle, and it included this home at 4722. It was completed in July of 1926 and was immediately featured in a full-page ad about the project. Most of the homes built in Coral Gables in the 1920s combined elements commonly used in Spanish, Moorish, and Italian architecture, and has come to be known as the Mediterranean Revival style. In addition to the Italian country home influences, the character-defining features of this home include, but are not limited to, its textured stucco, a Juliet balcony with decorative carved surround and metal railings, coral rock front entry coin surround, a vertical plank front door with decorative strap hinges, carved rafter tails, several decorative masonry grills, and recessed windows with projecting sills. This Italian-inspired Mediterranean Revival-style home is constructed of masonry units over a crawl space and clad in textured stucco. The home is L-shaped in plan and is comprised of 2-story and 1-story sections, yielding roughly 2,400 square feet of living space. Woods designed the home with 4 bedrooms. The north-south 1-story portion contained the living room and a screened porch at the north end, which is now enclosed. These spaces were designed with large arched openings that opened out to and afforded views of the formal garden in the rear and the landscaped entry drive on the front. The home is under a variety of pitched roofs that were originally clad in 2-piece barrel tile. The change to S-tile occurred in 1996. The original window type throughout the home was casement. The current impact-resistant single-hung windows were installed in 2013. Applied muttons were used to attempt to replicate the original casement pattern. The original size and location of the windows were retained. On the front facade is a Juliet balcony ensemble. As seen in the image on the right, it retains its metal railing and scroll supports, as well as the decorative door surround with its carved top piece. Another prominent feature on the front facade is the distinctive covered stair hall bay that is tucked in the corner of the 2-story L. Its steep shed roof follows the angle of the staircase. Likewise, small arched windows step down its facade to light the stair hall. A decorative masonry grille provides light under the stairs. The stair hall bay is anchored by the front entry under a hipped roof. The doorway has a rectangular opening, in contrast to the various street-facing arched openings across the front facade, and it is demarked by a coral rock coin door surround. The front vertical plank door has metal strap hinges. Above the front entry, at the northeast corner of the 2nd story, is a corner window feature with a continuous sill that wraps around the corner. The window is in what was the original master bedroom. Behind the corner window is the Italian-inspired narrow, semi-attached chimney that rises a half-story above the roof. It is finished with a decorative flared cap and a weather vane that sits on a course of bricks. The one-story north-south wing is under a stepped gable roof with decorative carved rafter tails in the eaves. It has full-height semicircular arched openings on all exposed facades. In the living room, the French door ensembles provide views of and access to the front and rear yards, as well as cross-ventilation through this space. They were replaced with the current double glass doors in 1998, which, although aesthetically different, provide the same original intention. Also at this time, the screened porch was enclosed for living space with the current glass and grille ensembles. Except for the change of fenestration type, the rear facade retains its 1925 design. At the southwest corner of the home is a flat-roofed bay that was originally a screened back entry porch. In 1998, the screened openings were replaced with window and a back door. One of the screened openings flanking the rear door was filled in. However, the infill is recessed and the original protruding sill retained, hence the original design is easily discernible. At the southwest corner of the lot is the original garage building. It was originally a two-car garage with a second-story servants' quarters over the northern bay. An exterior staircase along the north facade led to the servants' quarters. On the north facade of the staircase are graceful narrow arched openings. In 1959, the owners received a permit to repair the 9-foot by 12-foot framed stucco room from the top of the CBS garage. It was later amended to say remove rather than repair. No permit has been located to date for the change of the garage doors or the enclosing of the north bay. In conclusion, the single-family home and detached garage at 4722 Alhambra Circle was designed in 1925 by distinguished architect Frank Wyatt Woods for the American Building Corporation. In the mid-1920s, when the need for housing had outpaced construction, city founder George Merrick purchased 6,000 acres and sought investors who could aid in developing the new Riviera section. In August 1925, Merrick announced a $75 million contract with what has become known as the Village Project. Newspaper articles indicate that Woods designed the first homes for the project, and they included 4722 Alhambra Circle. The homes designed by Woods were Mediterranean-inspired and had perimeter walls and formal garden features, a front setback of 25 feet, as well as massing and a host of features inspired by Italian architecture. This home was part of a larger unfulfilled plan to develop the area just south of Bird Road with homes showcasing a variety of Italian precedents. The property at 4722 Alhambra Circle showcases Woods' thoughtful design as well as the intention for this area. Hence, the property at 4722 Alhambra Circle retains its integrity and significantly contributes to the historic fabric of the city of Coral Gables. The property is part of a collection of quality buildings that serves as a visible reminder of the history and the cultural heritage of the city. Staff recommends approval of the local historic designation of the property at 4722 Alhambra Circle based on its historical, cultural, and architectural significance.
Thank you. Is there anything additional by staff? Does the owner of the house wish to speak? Thank you. Please come up, state your name.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So my name is Hari Natarajan. I'm a professor at the University of Miami. I've been a professor at the university now for 21 years. I teach at the Miami Harvard Business School. This is my wife, Preeti Ramakrishnan. We have been married 21 years. The year that I got a job at UM is the year that we got married. We have an 11-year-old son. And when we moved here first in 2003, we absolutely fell in love with the neighborhood. That love continues. We've been longtime Coral Gables residents, and we hope that we'll continue to be longtime Coral Gables residents. So, I mean, you saw the presentation. When we bought this house, one of the things that struck us was, of course, it's exceptionally beautiful, and that's something that we value and cherish. But at the same time, there were several practical limitations to the house. It was not built for modern day living. It was built in 1926. So it didn't contemplate several of the requirements that modern day living needs. And so we wanted to plan a kind of thoughtful addition to the house. And that process is what has brought us here in front of you today. So first off, thanks to all of you for this opportunity to appear in front of the board and plead our case. So, if you look at the main argument, Anna, is it possible to load our presentation?
Oh, there we go.
There you go. Okay. All right, can we?
Ms. Parnas, this is a presentation on the historical significance
Yes.
portion of it?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, the designation portion of it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So you saw all the arguments that were made so eloquently before. I mean, designed by Frank White Woods, original houses, and all of that stuff. But I want to beg your indulgence here and look at the broader case that we're making, and then what we'd like to do is present a balance of interest argument that hopefully you will be able to entertain. So I want to start off by explaining what the structure is, what the site looks like, give you a feel for what these structures have gone over time, and in particular focus on the substantial alterations that have been made to the detached structure, which is primarily the one in question with our plans as well. And then review the criteria for historical designation and make an argument for why this might or might not fit the way it is currently been proposed. So this is our site. You've already seen a picture from Ms. Gwynn's presentation. We are at the southwest corner of Alegriano and Alhambra Circle, a minute's walk from the University of Miami, which of course is very convenient for me. The site is basically built with two structures. Sorry. Can you see the point? Yes. So this main L-shaped structure is the dwelling. And then what you see in the southwest corner back here is the detached garage structure, right? So what we want to show you rather, is how this has evolved over time. So these are the pictures I think that Ms. Gwynn used in her presentation as well. This is what the property originally looked like in 1926. What I want you to focus on is what the structure in the background looks like. It's a two-story structure. Intended to be a servant's quarters in the second story, and intended to be a two-car garage in the first story, in the ground floor, right? If you look at what it looks like right now, I mean, I would agree that a large part of what you see in the foreground has largely been preserved, which is exceptionally beautiful and what attracted us to the house in the first place, right? That's not at issue here. What you'll see in the background, perhaps not so clearly with this picture, is the fact that it no longer has a second floor. In fact, this is what our structure looks like right now. Ms. Gwynn pointed out that this structure has been substantially modified over time. In 1959, a permit was issued, approved for removal, demolition of the second story. So the original design was, in fact, disrupted and corrupted by this decision. And what you'll also see is that the staircase leads now up to what we call the staircase to nowhere, because what it does is it leads to an open terrace where the side walls, the parapet walls on the open terrace are less than 18 inches. You'll see a couple of potted plants that we have in front of the staircase. That's what we use to prevent small kids from running up and potentially avoid liability in that process, right? What you'll also see is that the second garage door is practically not usable as a garage because you'd have to be some exceptionally good Formula One driver to be able to make that turn and still park the car. So at some point of time, and this is the part where she said they couldn't find a permit for it. At some point of time, it was repurposed into a habitable space. In doing so, substantial modifications were made. So you'll see that the column that separates the two garage doors actually was a very thin column originally. It now is about 14 inches, more than a foot. If you look at the wall that appears at the bottom, the curb that basically supports the window, that's about 18 inches. And if you actually look closely, you'll see that the stucco, the finishes, everything is fundamentally different on this side of the garage. And you see that not so pleasant looking door as well. This is what it is. And so it has electricity connections, it has all of this stuff, essentially built for someone to actually live there at some point of time, right? So there are also many other modifications. I don't have a lot of pictures here, but if you look at this picture here, you'll see that the top part of it is all kind of modern concrete, and this is the old brick and plaster that the structure originally came with.
This is the space on the left, right? The garage opening on the left is not.
Mr. Banos, into the microphone, please.
I apologize. This is a space on the left, like the garage entrance itself.
So once you enter the garage, this is actually on the kind of top part of the walls across the entire garage. I'm showing you one section here, but it's actually something that you'll see at many
I
different...
don't think this was ever used as a garage, although, and there's a wooden plank that supports the garage door, so it doesn't quite open.
So here's the argument that we're making, right? If you look at this detached structure alone, it has 2 stories originally, single story now, 2-car garage, it's a single car garage now. So you can go through the list. It doesn't have the intended design. It doesn't have the intended purpose. It's not usable in any way, shape, or form the way it was originally intended. There are substantial modifications that have taken place. So if you look at Section 8103, on the one hand, it lists a bunch of criteria that for designation of historical, but it starts off with a statement that says, for something to be designated as historically significant, it must possess integrity of design, materials, and workmanship. And I would like to humbly present to you that this structure contains none of that. It does not have integrity of design. It does not have the integrity of workmanship and materials, because that door clearly didn't exist in 1926, right? So this presents predicament, right? Because one of the challenges that we have is that, if you look at it overall, if you want to designate the whole site, this structure for sure does not qualify, right? So what I'd like to do is beg your indulgence and make a proposal here. We are committed to historic preservation, and you'll see from our plans that our plans to build on this site actually do not impact the main structure at all. We love the main structure. We want to keep the main structure. But the problem that we are having is really with this garage, because this garage comes in the southwest corner, which is really the only viable place in our entire lot where we can build an addition and bring this house to the 21st century. Right? So what I'd like to suggest is the following. I looked up the Section 8101. It permits the opportunity for the board to consider designating the main dwelling structure alone as historic, allowing us the opportunity to designate this non-historic, non-architecturally valuable structure as non-historic, so that we could then proceed with our plans. That's the argument we want to
Could you
make.
read that section of the code? Do you have that section of the code that allows us to do that?
Just 101. So the section says, the purpose of the designation of historic landmarks and districts is to promote the educational, cultural, economic welfare of the public by preserving and protecting historic structures or sites, so structures or sites, portions of structures. So you could even take a portion of a structure and designate it as historic, man-made or natural landscape elements, works of art, integrated combinations thereof, which serve as reminders of the history and cultural heritage of the city. The structure in the foreground, the main dwelling, is absolutely worth preserving. The structure in the back, that's just an old building. It is not historic. That's the argument that we wanted to make in front of you, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Before we do this, what I'm going to do is, as residents, we're going to give you as much time as you want. This is your property, and we'll ask questions of them. But I also want to make sure that staff, have you spoken to staff? Is staff clear as to what the COA process is? Does the owner understand what the certificate of appropriateness is, and the difference between designation of the building and the ability to?
Yeah, like we said, mentioned that this application was instigated by the request for the historic significance letter, determination letter. This was after the property owners had gone through the Board of Architects processes, were going through the permitting process to demolish the structure, and they needed the letter in order to move forward with permitting. So it came to our attention that it met the criteria for designation since, believe that was in June of this year. And we've met ahead maybe 5 to 10 times if we've not talked on the phone or, tried to coordinate with the meeting. That was originally scheduled for July and then was continued to today. We did discuss that this is a hearing for designation as one section, and then the other section would be the certificate of appropriateness. In discussion, I think my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that, within our report, we start to call out significant features or contributing features within the site, because we're looking at it as the site for the designation. And so it is their intent, again, correct me if I'm wrong, is their request that you all consider that because of the changes to the garage that they're presented today, that it is not included as part of those features.
So I'm sorry, before I open it up to questions, again for staff, does designation preclude alterations to that rear building?
No,
It does not.
no. So the same to any COA that you see before you, we, to a certain extent, we're allowed to do modifications to structures within a historically designated site.
And my last question, and open up for anybody from the board. The homeowner has referenced section 8-01 saying that we have the authority to remove and designate specific sections of a property. Can you opine on that, please?
I will let the city attorney.
Please.
Mr. Garcia Pons, thank you. I just want to read a section of the code. The property owner certainly referenced a correct section of the code, 8101. I would just like to point you all to a section of the code in 8104, designation procedures, section B, preparation of historic landmark designation report, proposed boundaries. Boundaries for individual historic sites shall generally include the entire property or tract of land unless such tract is so large that portions thereof are visually and functionally unrelated to any significant historic improvement. And then there's district boundaries as well. So that's sort of the language about an individual historic site. I don't know that you all are precluded from designating one building or another. I'm not sure that that's generally been the practice of this board, but the code specifies that generally it should include the entire property, if including multiple structures, unless you can so visually or functionally distinguish them.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. So it sounds like we have a bunch of questions. What I'd like to do is do this in some sort of an order. If you have a question from the board, be specific as to who the question is to and what the question is. And I'm happy to recognize people in the order that they wish to be recognized. Does anybody have any questions for anybody? Ms. Dene?
Yes, I have a quick question for staff. When you were writing up your report, you only considered the site designation, correct? So what we had before us, so this is a new request right now to carve out something
That is
different.
the property owner's request.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Baños, please.
I've spoken a lot, so I just want to make sure that anybody else has a question. Now, clearly, Ms. Parnas, even though that's their modified request to some degree, that's not really, well, at least what I see that is in front of us. We can certainly designate the entire site and then, as part of the certificate of appropriateness, allow them to demolish the structure, right?
Yes.
So, in other words, their request, even though it is organized in their perspective, because for whatever reason they may think that it might be helpful, if the board ultimately decides that the certificate of appropriateness, will be granted, it's moot to some degree.
That's correct.
Okay. So, do you understand that, sir? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
They just don't want to take any chances.
Yeah, you got it.
I get
Okay.
it. I get it.
I think you'll be fine. Okay, so-
Any specific questions from the board to either the homeowner or staff?
I don't.
Okay, Mr. Maxwell.
I have just one brief one. I haven't seen it on the survey, but did your architect look at incorporating the walls of the?
I'm sorry, Mr. Maxwell, let's do just the designation, not the COA.
Right.
All right.
The designation is first.
Okay.
So,
Got ahead of
I'd
myself.
like
Mr.
to make a
Nay.
motion.
Wait, let me check.
no,
Okay.
I'm happy to cede the floor. Okay, so.
No motions yet.
That's fine.
Anything, so we understand, we have no further questions. Anything else you have for us?
No. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. From staff, before I take it to public comment.
I was just going to let you know about the public comment.
Okay, please let us know.
So for the public comment in regards to the designation, we did receive a letter of support for the designation by Ms. Corelia Carbonell for the Historic Preservation Association of Coral Gables, and we did receive some letters of support from the last meeting that are incorporated within your file ID, specific to the designation. So there are other public comment, just so I could clarify, that will be mentioned for the COA.
Thank you, Ms. Benna. So I'm going to close this, open it up to public hearing. Yes, thank you so much. Does anybody in the audience have wish to speak in favor or opposition to this case? Okay, hearing none, I am closing public comment and bringing it back to the board. This is only the designation item. Is there any discussion, or does anybody wish to make a motion on that one item?
I'd like to make a motion.
Ms. Dene.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the local historic designation of the property located at 4722 Alhambra Circle based upon the evidence presented to the board, specifically in the designation report, which details the character-defining features and the architect Frank Wyatt Wood and the Italian-inspired architecture of the 1920s, and that it meets 3 of the criteria stipulated in Article 8, Section 8-103 of the Coral Gables Zoning Code, specifically criteria 4. It exemplifies the historical, cultural, political, economic, or social trends of the community and its architectural significance as detailed in the designation report. Criteria 1 portrays the environment in an era of history characterized by one or more distinctive architectural styles. And criteria 3 embodies those distinguishing characteristics of an architectural style or period or method of construction, and also taking into consideration Article 8-104B regarding boundaries for sites.
Thank you, Ms. Dene. Is there a second?
I'll second that. We just point of clarification. You're just designating the entire site, right? That was your motion?
Yes.
All right, great.
Pursuant to Article 8-104.
Yeah. So, yes, I'll second.
Okay, I thought Mr. Maxwell seconded. Do you want to?
No, it's fine.
Let me give it to Mr. Maxwell with the second. Any discussion amongst the board members? Are we clear what we're voting on? Excellent. Okay, let's call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Durana?
Yes.
Ms. Rolando?
Yes.
Ms. Spain?
Yes.
Mr. Banos?
Yes.
Ms. Dene?
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mr. Garcia Pons?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Do I need to read the item again into the record? So we're going to move on to the COA portion of the request. Is there anything from staff that's required at this time?
Yes, I'm just going to read excerpts from the staff report. Anna Pernis, Preservation Officer. The applicant is also requesting an issuance of an accelerated special certificate of appropriateness and design approval for the demolition of the original auxiliary structure, additions, and alterations to the residence and site work. The 2-story addition will include a new 1-car garage, kitchen, living room, laundry room, prayer room, and bathroom at the first floor, and master bedroom suite with his and hers closet, bathroom, and studio at the second floor. The addition is slightly taller than the original house and should be lowered so that it does not overwhelm the historic structure if considered for approval. The site work includes the demolition of the original garage building to accommodate the proposed 2-story addition. The garage was originally a 2-car garage with a second story over the northern portion. As mentioned before, in 1959, a permit was issued to repair the 9x12 frame and stucco room and was later revised to remove instead of repair. The exterior staircase along the north elevation remains, and the 2-car garage openings have been slightly modified. The structure is visible from Alhambra Circle and Alegriano Avenue. Per Section 8-107D of the Coral Gables Zoning Code, the board shall consider the following criteria in evaluating the applications for a special certificate of appropriateness for demolition of designated properties: the degree to which the building structure, improvement, or site contributes to the historic and/or architectural significance of the historic site. The structure is original to the construction of the house, and its detailing corresponds with the main house. This is considered a contributing structure to be a character-defining feature of the site. Number 2, whether the building structure, improvement, or site is one of the last remaining examples of its kind in the neighborhood, the county, or the region. The detached auxiliary structures were common in the original development of the city of Coral Gables, but many have been altered or demolished. Number 3, whether the loss of the building, structure, improvement, or site would adversely affect the historic and/or architectural integrity of the historic site or district. The removal of the original historic fabric is considered drastic action. Number 4, whether the retention of the building, structure, improvement, or site would promote the general welfare of the city by providing an opportunity for study or local history, architecture, or design, or by developing an understanding of the importance of the value of the particular culture and heritage. The detached auxiliary structures were common, and there are other opportunities for this type of study. Whether architectural plans have been presented to the board for the refuse of the property if the proposed demolition were to be carried out, and the appropriateness of said plans to the character of the historic site, if applicable, and demonstration as well as the posting of a bond required that there are sufficient funds in place to carry out the plans. The proposed redevelopment plans are not compatible with the original structure and need to be further studied. No bond has been presented to staff at this time. Number 6, whether the building, structure, improvement, or site possesses an imminent threat to the public health or safety. The structure is in good condition. Number 7, whether the applicant has demonstrated that retention of the building, structure, improvement, or site would create an unreasonable or undue economic hardship, as described in section 8-115. None have been presented to staff. And number 8, whether there is compelling public interest requiring the demolition, and none have been presented to staff. As proposed, the additions are not compatible with the existing development of the site and the architecture of the historic structures. As per the designation report, the garage structure is considered to be a character-defining feature of the site, and its demolition should be considered a major alteration. Staff met with the applicants on multiple occasions to express concern over the proposed demolition of the original auxiliary structure, and staff recommends reconsidering the organization of the new addition and exhaust all attempts to reuse the original garage prior to considering demolition. Staff recommends denial of the application. In addition, there are presentations that were submitted by the architect and applicant just prior to this meeting, so staff hasn't had sufficient time to review, but they would like to come before you. I believe Mr. Farouk, or the architect's. Okay, you go. Okay, sorry. So the property owner is going to start with his presentation.
Please, thank you, Ms. Benas.
So Anna, can we go back to where we were in the same deck and start?
Coral Gables TV.
CGTV. Do you know what slide it would be, maybe?
I can tell you.
Oh, he got it. Almost there.
Yeah, keep going, keep going. One more.
Perfect.
Okay, all right. So, we do have our architect here, and he will present our plans to you so you can get a feel for what this means.
And can you state your name again for the record?
I'm sorry. My name is Hari Natarajan. I'm still a professor at UM.
Thank you.
So I'll continue our presentation. Okay, so here's what we are requesting. But before I make the request, I want to give you a sense for the journey that we've had to get to this point. As I told you, we bought this house in 2017, and right at that moment, we identified what we needed to do with the house. We wanted to figure out what the right way to do it. And then finally, around September 2020, we got around to presenting a proposal to the city. At the time, the city permitted us to actually simultaneously track a proposal that goes for zoning and the BOA that was permitted at the time. So our original proposal actually did have the garage. So one of the things that we had told Farouk, our architect, is let's keep as much as possible and then try and work around it, right? But we had some requirements. So one of the things that we wanted to do was to be able to use the space that the garage has. If not as a garage, then as a habitable space. The only way we could do that was to actually impact the north side of the garage. And the north side of the garage is the one that has the staircase to nowhere. So it made sense to knock down the staircase and impact that garage. Because the house, the way it lines up, the garage is somewhat behind the main structure. It is not completely separate. So if you were to draw a line, you would actually have to impact the garage. There's just no way around it. So we went back and forth over several iterations. By that time, Coral Gables the city had switched systems, so we were asked to support present a brand new plan. So we went to the BOA first. And in early 2023, over 5-6 rounds of BOA review, including a review from the gentleman here, who was all very supportive and very, very helpful in the process. I mean, they gave us some brilliant ideas. Yeah, you're welcome. So, over many, many iterations, it became very clear to us that the garage structure actually wasn't serving its functional purpose. One of the things that you'll see later on in this presentation is that the garage is set 75 feet into the property. So that's a driving test that we have to take every morning if you actually park the car there and try to come back all the way onto the road, right? My wife might pass the test, but I might not. So that's the reason why we think this is quite hazardous. After that plan, finally in June 2023, after several rounds of iterations, what the Board of Architects said was, look, anyway you're going to impact this garage, there's no way around it. So the best thing to do is actually to demolish the garage, move it further up to address all of the purpose and integrate it better into the building. They also loved the styling of the house, the architectural style. I'm maybe not using the right terminology here, but you know what I mean. And what they tried to do was help us align the new addition in a manner that was respectful and paid homage to the original structure as best as possible. Right? So that's how we came up with this plan. And so we thought, this is great, this is wonderful, we can finally get to build. Our son is 11 years old. If we start building now, there's a good chance we'll finish it before he actually goes to college.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily, okay. All right. Not the encouraging note I was looking for, but I'll take it. So I think what happened is, so we went directly to zoning, started applying for all of the permits. So we got pretty far in the permits. So I can show you a list of permits that we already have approved at this point. In the second round of review at the city, in April 2024, nearly 4 years after the process started, is when we were told, hey, by the way, your house could be historic, so therefore, if you demolish something, it triggers historical determination, then you have to go get that and then get it approved, blah, blah, blah. And so, we were at the finish line, and we were told that we might potentially have to start all over again. This was, heart attack type of news for us because, it would be cruel to have us go back all the way and start and go through all of this process all over again. So we were due to be here in July. We couldn't make it. There were some flight cancellations. I couldn't be here. So that's why we asked for a deferral. I thank you guys for indulging us in terms of having both the accelerated COA come up so that we can save a bit of time in terms of moving forward with our project. So here's where we are with our approvals. So on the left-hand side, you see the Miami-Dade County approvals. This is for our septic tank. So the DERM, VASA, Department of Health, all of this stuff has already been approved. If you look at it at the City of Coral Gables, basically all the various stages of MEP, all of that stuff we've made a lot of progress in getting this far. And so all that remains before us and our actual starting of the project, we were actually want to sign on the dotted line with a contractor when we found this out. Right? That's how close we were to starting this project. So the point that I want to make is that this has been an incredibly long and arduous journey. I want to point out that at various points of time, we've dealt with the building department, the Board of Architects, the historical preservation. I've even talked to the city mayor about this. Everyone has been supportive and sympathetic as to where we are, but nobody has actually offered a solution to the process yet. But I hope that someone someday will, in fact, fix the process because this is a huge undue burden on any homeowner. This is not how a process should look. I teach operations at the University of Miami. I teach process design. This is not the process anyone should come up with. Right? This is just fundamentally flawed as a process. Now, on that note, I'm going to hand over to our architect here so he can actually present the plans and I don't have to pretend to be one. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask them to load his presentation?
Yes, can we change the presentation to the next?
Thank you. My name is Farooq Roseki. I'm the president of Structural Design Inc. in Miami. We have been in business since 1991, designed many houses, industrial buildings. So we were retained by our client to do an addition to the house. I don't want to go, Harry went through most of the things that we wanted to talk about, but I just want to add a couple of points to that, and that's it, and we'll go from there. Takes a while, I guess.
Can somebody help him out with the remote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, they wanted a master suite because the original building was lacking a master
Mr.
suite.
Rosecki, can you speak into the microphone, please, or move
Yes,
the
I'm
microphone
sorry.
over?
Yeah, they wanted a master suite, which was missing in the original house, cabana bath, because they already have a pool, family room, TV room, minimal impact or no impact on the original structure. We wanted to keep it exactly the way it is, just add to it. I'm going to go to the next slide without going through all this because we had a problem with the setback because the existing garage has only a 5 feet setback and the city requires a 10 feet setback. Okay. Later on, we found out that the board of, you could approve that. So anyways, looking at the site plan, which I have here, you can see where the, okay, you can see where the garage was, where the building was. We wanted to line it up. Basically, there's about 3 feet difference between the side of the building and the side of the garage. All right, this is what I want to talk about, really. The existing house is on the right-hand side, the garage on the left-hand side. Intentionally, I did a section through that so you can understand exactly what's going on there. As you can see, oops, that's the finished floor that we have, okay? If you wanted to do our original design was to do a modification to the garage, add a second story on it, and turn it into a one-car garage because they needed the space downstairs and upstairs to be added. So we're going to line up the building, basically go all the way down and use some space from the ground floor and some space second floor. If you look at here, you'll see that the clear height that we would have ended up would be about 5 foot. Now, the existing structure, I just want to add a couple of things. Harry already showed you the pictures. It's a wood frame at the top. They used 2x10s at 14 inches on center. And then what they did from center on, they shaved it to a 2x6 in order to make the slope for the roof that they had. There is an existing column. That's the garage as you can see it from outside, and these stairs. These stairs are only about 23 inches wide, which is not to the code, even if you wanted to keep it. But we went through the other. Okay, there is the garage, as you can see it. So on this side, basically, I keep going. Sorry about that. I'm going the wrong way, I know. I found out. It takes a while for this. Okay, as you can see, on this side we have 2x10s, on the other side we have 2x6. Now look at this post that they have right now in the center. It looks like a shoring, actually. It's not even connected to the beam. Structurally unsafe because it's not connected. To make a long story short, we had to get rid of some of that roofing in order to make our second floor. We already talked about this, the existing structure, how it looked like, and we tried to match it actually with the new design. So I'm just going to go ahead. We already went through a lot of those reasons why we have to demolish that. The depth of the garage is only about 18 feet, 8 inches, something like that. The new code requires 20 feet clear. So even if we wanted to make a real garage, we didn't have room for that either. The other things we pretty much went through it. That's a demolition plan. I want to go to the second floor. That's what we ended up as the exterior look of the building. Bringing the garage to the front, having a second floor at the top, and matching the building that we had. That's the rear view that you're looking at. The pool is here. The pool is located here, and this was the addition that we came up with, actually. Keeping in mind that we went to the 10 feet setback so that we comply with the code. That's the rear view. The left view of the garage, as you can see where it is. We reduced that distance that they have to back up at least. So, all right, this is a new design. As you can see, we added here, we added this portion here, brought the garage to the front, okay? And that's the second floor. I just want to show you that. You can see, we went to the Board of Architects, I think at least 4 times, if not 5 times, okay? Because we wanted to make sure the design was correct. It matched the existing building. That was the most important thing in our design, that it matched the existing building. We came up with this. In fact, it was their suggestion to add this down here over the garage, so it matches the building. It was a good suggestion. So we ended up with this. That was our design. Now, I'm going to respond to the comments that the staff had in their observation, that they went through it. Okay?
So in terms of context for the staff comments, right, I think there's one comment which related to the garage itself, whether it can be demolished or not. And then there were other comments that related to the addition itself. So I think what Farooq is going to address are the comments that are related to the addition. And then I'll talk about the garage itself, if that's okay with you.
Thank you.
All right, the front elevation is facade. We had a comment that the addition should be finished in a stucco texture different from the original building. We did have a comment on, as you can see it here, on page A3. We matched the existing structure because it does have that kind of stucco which goes with the architectural. So we did match it with that. I don't think it should be different. The comment says that it should be different, the stucco. But, it's not a big...
So if I may, so I think we've had conversations with the staff on all of these details. I think one of the challenges, so that the first 2 comments with relation to stucco, we'll stipulate by whatever they say. There's another comment about the addition being about 6 inches taller than the existing.
I'm going to talk about that.
So, we can address that as well. It is within the margin of error for any roofer to do 6 inches, and 6 inches is not going to overwhelm the structure, especially given how far set it is on the site. But that's something, again, we'll stipulate. There are some other comments about windows and so on, where we need some clarity because these were requirements that the BOA had made of us. So what we'd like is the opportunity, and we spoke to staff about this early on, to sit with the city architect and the staff and kind of go over this together, because we don't want kind of competing or contradictory advice from one party with another. That will make it very difficult for us. The main issue that the report had, at least as we see it, is the demolition of the garage, right? I think I first made the point in my previous presentation that...
Switch presentations.
Yeah, I think...
Actually, before we do that,
Yeah.
So just for clarity, are there any staff conditions that you are completely opposed to, or you're willing to work with staff?
We're willing to work with staff and the city architect together so that we don't have to go...
If the board makes a recommendation, we can state that as part of the condition. So if you're willing to stipulate, then we can go directly to what you would like to speak about.
Yes.
Thank you.
So...
and we can come back to this if there are specific questions.
Thank you. Well, if there's any questions, we'll come back. Thank you, Mr. Rusecki.
Yes. So if we can just go back...
Gables TV, can we get the previous presentation, please?
Yes. I'm going to switch out. Sorry, I think we should have put it all in one presentation, but...
Okay, is this it?
Yes. No, yeah, we have to go a lot further down. Okay, so this is where we were. I showed you the approvals that we've already received. He talked about our addition, so I won't belabor the point. The first point that I want to make is, when we spoke to Farooq first, we looked at different possibilities, right? The only real place where you can build and build 2 floors, because all of the bedrooms in our house are on the second floor, right? So the only place to build was in the second floor was here, because only this portion of the structure is 2-story. This part is a single story, right? So it didn't make sense to build anything on the north side of our lot at all. The only viable place was the southwest corner. So which is why we had to pick this spot, and which is why the garage is being impacted, right? So I've already made the point about why that structure does not have any architectural significance, does not have any historical significance. It's been modified beyond recognition from its original structure. I made the point about how it is very difficult to actually use it as a garage anymore. Farooq also made this point about how it is 18 feet and doesn't have the clearance that is required at this point. Farooq already made about the points about these as well, so I won't repeat it. This is what I was talking about as the parapet. This is our staircase to nowhere that takes you to this open terrace, 18 inches and lower. So it's a huge hazard that we are dealing with. And I mean, the structure as it's currently seen, this is the view of our house as you stand in Alegriano. So I actually took 3 pictures, one while seated in a car, one while walking. All of them will show you exactly the same thing, which is that you cannot see that 1-story structure anymore from the Alegriano side of our house. So what I want to say is, we've already made the point about the demolition of the detached structure. I don't want to belabor the point. I want to go over the criteria for demolition, right? I think we can make the argument quite clearly that there is no architectural historical significance in that structure. So as such, that point is taken care of. The second point is whether this is one of the last remaining examples. And the point here is that, I mean, we already saw 2 structures today that have detached garages, both of which have been designated as historic. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for such study elsewhere. And even if such study were to be conducted, this is an extremely poor example of what the original detached structure should look like. So clearly not the exemplar that we want people to be studying. The point that I want to make in terms of the historical and architectural integrity is that in our minds, and I hope you'll agree, the value is really in the main dwelling. And as the staff report tells you, there's literally minimal to no impact on the main dwelling structure at all. All we're doing is simply creating access for the new addition to be able to attach onto the existing structure. Outside of that, there's no impact at all. The staff themselves have noted that there are plenty of other opportunities to study these types of detached structures. So the architectural plans, whether they were in fact in character with the historic site and so on, that was the point number 5 for criteria for demolition. The BOA approved this unconditionally. We have a BOA member here who can certify to that as well. I mean, we went through extensive rounds of review where literally every single window, every single corner of this structure of the addition was looked at very carefully to make sure that it retained historic and architectural integrity, and so that's what we've tried to put together. The staff makes the point that this structure is in good condition. We've showed you ample evidence that the structure is not in good condition, particularly when you consider that our goal is in fact to build a second story, right? So the housing that the current garage structure sits on will not permit us to actually put anything like concrete on top. That makes it very, very challenging for us to work with. Whether this presents an undue burden, you be the judge. After 4 years of paying architects, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, plumbers, and all of that stuff, of all of these people who've presented plans to us and going through that entire process, it would be a huge blow if we are not able to. And so this would be a hugely undue burden on the homeowner if we're not able to pursue this project as it's currently structured. We have a lot of neighbors in the area, and we've shared our plans with our neighbors. I'm sure Ms. Parnas will share with you their comments. We all have small kids who come home. Everybody is nervous about this garage structure. And we've also shared our plans. They all believe that it's a tasteful addition that's in keeping with the architectural style of the house, and they're all fully supportive of the plans that we have made. I want to also share with you that there's recent precedents for this, but before I go do that, I want to present a little balance of interest argument again, because I think historical preservation, at least in my mind, is based on this idea of, is it balancing the interests of society at large, of Coral Gables, the city at large, versus the individual homeowner? I think what the historical designation that you all unanimously approved does is it gives the city an incredibly beautiful looking structure, which is the main dwelling. And that is the only structure in our house that is worth preserving, right? The other part of it is just an old building. And just the fact that it's old doesn't actually make it anything special at all. It's not architecturally significant. It's not suitable for either its intended use or its planned use. I can't make it a habitable space, neither can I use it as a garage very effectively. And it does pose a safety hazard given the way the structure is right now. For us as the homeowner, what is the balance of interest? We get to preserve our beautiful home, which was our goal all along, and build an addition that actually makes sense for our living now. And hopefully, having gone through this for as long as we have, our process will ultimately come to a fruitful outcome that will help us move forward with our project, right? There are a couple of precedents, but I'm sure you're all aware. So I combed through all your prior meetings, and there is a precedent where a detached structure at 117 Alido was permitted to be demolished. The argument there was the one about habitable space. So because the level to which the floor had to be raised relative to the ceiling would allow for less than, I think, 7 feet 6 inches is the code. It was less than that, so it was allowed in that case. There's another case that came up in front of the board recently. This was March 2024. In this case, if you look at the structure, their detached structure is actually right next to the main house. It has 2 floors as well. But the arguments in that case persuaded the board to actually say yes to demolition of the garage. So given the precedent, given the balance of interest, I think it's reasonable for us to request the board to grant a certificate of appropriateness for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes. Please.
Wait. I just want to hear yes or no. Does that
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Once she says please, I can't say no.
So now that presentation is concluded,
Yes.
does anybody from the board have any specific questions for either the homeowner, the architect, or staff? And please be clear as to what your question is and who it's to.
Yes.
Mr. Baños.
No, please, go ahead.
Mr. Maxwell, who wishes to go?
Excellent.
Thank you.
Very well presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question really is, would you be open to a deferral, to work with a deferral, to work with staff, to work through some of these issues that the staff has, let's say assuming the demolition of the garage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm happy to stipulate that we'll work through to the satisfaction of staff all the issues that they have raised and make sure that they are ultimately satisfied with it.
But the question is whether our job today is to either approve or deny your application. What Mr. Maxwell is asking is, would you entertain a deferral so that we take no action today and you will go back to staff and then come back to the board for a decision?
So here's the way I think about it. If your answer is going to be, well, if he's not going to grant me deferral opportunity, then the answer is no, then yes, I will accept the option. But the way,
that is unknown at this time.
That is unknown at this time, yes. So I am at a bit of a disadvantage as I answer this question. I think the bigger point is, we are happy to work with this. So if you guys think that that is in fact the right approach to take, then we would like to, accept that. For us, every single month that we spend not starting the project is painful, is absolutely horrendously painful. So we'd like to get started as quickly as possible, but if the only way to do that is by a deferral, then we would entertain that as well.
That was a question from one of our board members.
Okay.
So before
We do
you commit to
understand the
anything.
painfulness of this process sometimes, but I'd also like you to understand that this process was actually started when the city started. So it's been around for a long time, and it's not singularly pointed to you. So
Thank you,
Feels
Mr.
very
Maxwell.
personal, though.
Ms. Spain,
I just have a comment about your request, because I think in fairness to the applicant, we should, and also to staff, we should, I don't know whether we can vote on whether or not we consider the demolition of that garage as feasible, because otherwise they're going to go off and have this discussion.
Let's give him our mind.
wait, so
So, I mean, I don't know.
we are a board that has the responsibility to have discussion on this dais.
Right.
So we can have discussion,
Okay.
and then it would be clear, I think, from the discussion.
Right.
So before we make any motions, right now we have questions for the homeowner, the architect, or staff.
Okay, I just have one other question.
Please, Ms. Spain.
Professor Rosecki, you taught me structures when I was in school, and I believe you were nice enough to come with me when I was debating whether to buy a home on Santa Maria Street. My name then was Donna Lubin, and you were so kind. You came over there, and I think you crawled under in the crawl space to see whether it was structurally sound. I don't know if you remember that, but I just wanted to tell you how nice I thought
Thank you
were.
very much.
Professor Rosecki crawls under every house. Mr. Banos.
So, just questions. First of all, don't ever allow anybody to tell a UN professor that you're underprepared, okay? And that comes from a proud Gator, okay? We'll see what happens in 2 weeks, but anyway, at any rate, just for my consideration, this particular structure has a very interesting setback, which actually allows you to go further, and this is something Mr. Durana had sort of whispered in my ear. So just for the record, why not utilize the full point to the end of what that line is? Because then at that point in time, you're actually using more of the property and you actually have more use of that, even if, let's assume that we may be predisposed to either through a deferral process or through our own discussion here, allow for either what you've proposed or a version of that, okay? Wouldn't it be more advantageous to make full use of the property and go all the way to the end? You get more house?
Well, that we did consider that actually.
Because you preserve the
But we didn't
walls of
wanna
the structure
change-
that way.
We didn't want to change the front elevation drastically. We wanted to keep the elevation that we had, and that garage setback sort of matched what the original design was. So that was the idea, that we put the garage a little bit setback at that location. Because we didn't want to touch the view from the street on that side.
You had 2 questions, you said?
That answered my question.
Okay, Ms.
Question.
Dene?
I just want to pull this back to what our requirements are. So we have to follow Section 8-107D when we're considering whether or not an area should be demolished. So is your position that these particular criteria are in favor of demolishing?
Yes.
But I kind of heard that maybe you were willing to work on some of these items.
No, so what we
Can I say
stipulated,
something?
yeah.
The garage structure is unsafe to start with, okay? If the next hurricane comes, we don't know if that roof is going to hold or not. It's not connected even to that column. Okay, that's number one.
But isn't it possible to make it structurally
Yes,
safe without
we could.
demolishing it?
We could. Yes, of course, we can always make it structurally safe. The second was that the modification done to the garage through the years exceeds 50% of the value of the garage. And by code, if we do any construction there, adding a second floor or using part of the first floor, we have to bring everything back to code. Also keep in mind that the second floor was a wood frame structure, not allowed anymore in the city of Coral Gables. We had to go with a masonry wall. That means revising the roof framing, revising the foundation for the existing. For those reasons, since the garage is not even usable right now as a garage, okay? Actually, she told me that as it rains, the water even gets in there. Okay, so they haven't even used it since they bought it in 2017. Okay, so it just, and the shape of the garage is...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but then mainly your argument is that you are demonstrating that if you have to retain the building, it's creating an unreasonable or undue economic hardship. Is that really the crux of your argument?
Correct. And the way it is, it doesn't match the original design intended by the architect.
If I can interrupt, we were told at the beginning of the presentation that hardship was not part of this presentation and that nothing was provided to the city staff, so we cannot utilize that. I'm going to ask city attorney for clarification.
I believe that to be the case, and Ms. Dunasia, just wanted to respond to some of your comments. I believe the correct section that they have referenced as well is 8107D. Those are the criteria for demolition, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which I believe he went through in his presentation. And as to the stipulation, my understanding of the record, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that you stipulated to agreement to working with staff on the issues related to the windows, the stucco differentiation, the height of the building, sort of the non-garage related comments in the staff report. So, and I guess to Mr. Maxwell's comments earlier, that the stipulation was they would be, if the COA was so approved with those conditions to work with staff on those elements, they would be more than willing to work with staff on those elements, but that the garage is sort of a threshold item to be determined.
Thank you for making that distinction. So let me go back to, can we consider the information being presented on undue hardship when it wasn't presented to staff?
So the code provides that if information is untimely provided to this board and to the staff, that staff or the other party may request this board a reasonable continuance to address that issue. I do not believe that they've provided the complete application for the undue hardship, which is a separate process entirely. But to the extent that they mean a hardship sort of generally rather than the specific undue financial hardship process in the code, I don't know if that's what they're addressing, rather than the particular process that's laid forth in the code.
That's right. That's what we're addressing. And we had responses to each of the criteria that we believe we satisfy for demolition under the code that Hari presented. And that is specific to the garage because that's the crux of the matter here. And we're willing to work with the staff on the other.
We did see that, and again, it's not the economic hardship. They can claim design hardships and all the other kinds of hardships, but not economic.
Yeah, just a question.
I'm sorry, Ms. Dinner, are you done?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr.
A question for the city attorney. Ultimately, even if they didn't cross all their T's and dot all their I's in the particular request for hardship, ultimately, we can, as a board, it's our discretion if we so desire to essentially override that procedural snafu and grant or deny whatever the procedure is, correct?
So I would need to look more closely at that specific undue economic hardship, but to the extent that the criteria in 8107D as to demolition of historic structures, if you all find that those 8 criteria have been met based on this presentation, you can certainly do so. That's well within your discretion to determine, to disagree with staff's findings on those 8 particular criteria.
Okay.
It's not economic. It's
correct.
Other reasons.
I just wanted to figure out what can we do as to what we cannot do, so that.
Mr. Durana.
I mean, this is more for us to kind of discuss, but where I kind of.
No, let's do questions. We'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Does anybody have any questions for the architect, the homeowner, or staff? Okay, thank you. We're going to close and open it up to public comment. Does anybody wish to speak in favor or opposition to this case?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're closing public comment, bringing it, back to the board. Ms. Pennas, can you tell us?
Oh, yeah. So we did receive, in addition to the public comment received from the July 17th meeting, we did receive letters of support for the COA, including the demolition from Yasmin Gonzalez, Enrique Turan, and Pili Haddad, Mohan and Nelafiu Coca. I'm sorry if I am pronouncing that incorrect. Giselle Alfonso, Amy Julian, and Amber Cito Lasso. We also received a letter in support of staff's recommendation to deny the application by Ms. Corelia Carbonell on behalf of the HBACG.
Thank you, Ms. Pennas. Okay, so public comment is closed. We're now back to the board. Mr. Durana, it's open for discussion.
All right. So, I mean, I think we might be all on the same page, but my suggestion is, to me, the freestanding garage structure, when the city issued a permit to demo the second floor, to me, I mean, that kind of was a huge blow to the historic integrity of that structure. So to me, I'm totally okay with, removing that garage structure and proceeding with the plan, assuming they are fine with staff's comments on the other items. That's just kind of my stance on the structural integrity of that structure and its historical significance.
Thank you, Mr. Durana. Anyone else?
Yes.
Please, Mr. Baños.
So, they made a comment during the presentation that they said that they thought that the garage was inconsistent with the design or not important or not part of. My perspective is the design and the site and everything else in of itself, it's all contributing to its historic significance. It's not just the garage itself. So I disagree with that point that they were trying to make. Having said that, I think the practicalities of the structure, what they have, the condition of that particular garage today as it stands, and just, I do think that there is a significant argument for, if not general design hardship, some other form of illustration that they are aggrieved by virtue of not allowing this structure to be demolished. Certainly, at least to my mind, given the condition that it has, the roof seems to be creating an attractive nuisance, right? So because you have a situation where you may have kids wanting to actually go up to that section of the roof without any real protection. They cannot really use it as a garage because it's structurally unsound. They don't seem to be able to build on it because of the additional beams or whatever else they need to do to it. The fact that it's not really usable. So there's a lot of, in my mind, there's a lot of check marks that would lead me to believe that, yes, demolition is a proper course of action, at least the more reasonable course of action, especially if we have already designated it. But what I would like to do is, I would like to get the mind of maybe some of the more experienced members of the board who have been here longer as to whether or not you've seen the situation come before, how you have, how we have addressed it, how it has been, looked at by staff and by you all, and whether or not what they're asking is reasonable. I mean, I have some issues with the design and the way the garage door looks and how it, but those are just tangential because they can work with staff with those. As to the actual, agreeing to their request for demolition, that's at least where my mind is with regards to those.
Thank you. I'm happy to open it up, but I do want to clarify again that precedents are interesting for people to take a look at, and for us, it's all on a case-by-case basis. So although we consider Coral Gables and we have the rules that we must follow, every project is completely different and should be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. I know we know that. I just wanted to say it again for the record. So Mr. Binders is throwing it out there. Anybody have any comments or thoughts they wish to share? I think we're taking a sort of informal poll as to how we feel about this thing. Ms. Rolando.
I would say ordinarily I'm a no on or I approach it with the presumption of a no on demolishing the auxiliary structures because they are so much a fabric of the Coral Gables historic code and the appearance and the streetscape. So I agree with you, Mr. Durana, that when the city authorized the demolition of that second floor, it just basically removed the major historic attribute of that auxiliary structure. And I also don't want to have us be in a position where we are encouraging homeowners not to preserve those auxiliary buildings. Here, I'm not persuaded by the structural argument because basically we know you can prop up practically anything. So that's, but nor am I overly moved by having to do 75 feet in reverse because there's lots of garages.
Every house, right?
Yeah. But I am convinced by the appearance of that, of how that building has been unsympathetically modified over the period of time. And it seems somewhat with the acquiescence of the governing municipality. So I'm, even though I'm a typical no on demolition, I am, I'm somewhat persuaded by the unsympathetic modifications. I do think that the staff's comments are appropriate, but for the demolition, and they should be incorporated in modifications. So I'm willing to approve a certificate of appropriateness and go with the demolition, provided the applicant works with the city staff to modify the plans to accommodate their recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Rolando. Anybody else wish to weigh in? Mr. Maxwell?
Peggy, you really said that very well. Yeah. And every one of these is unique. And I think it's important to understand that. A compelling argument has been made. However, I'm going to say that the can't be restored argument is never feasible, because it can be. And we've seen that many, many times. I would agree with her. I think that the plan that's been presented is well thought out. It's tried to do the best that it could. And I would agree with Ms. Rolando's assertion that while most of you know that I vote regularly for no demolition, I would encourage the engineer to incorporate the walls of the existing buildings into the new structure and let them be shown. Also, to work closely with staff to ameliorate their concerns about the design.
Thank you, Mr. Maxwell. Any other things? So I have a couple of comments, and regardless of what my vote, whether it's going to be a yes or no for approval or denial, I think there's two issues. One is the demolition of the garage, which is substantive. I also believe that staff's comments regarding the design are incredibly substantive. So we've been sort of glossing over, although the owner has said that they would be happy to work with staff and stipulate to coordinate these things. I would say that, again, I don't know where my vote's going, but one thing for sure is I believe that any recommendation for approval has to comply completely with staff recommendations, because I think the recommendations are completely on point regardless of the situation of the garage. Again, I don't know if that's going to be enough, but it's definitely a low barrier to entry for me for my vote.
Mr. Chair, if
Mr.
I may make a
Baños,
motion.
please.
I would like to make a motion for deferral, okay, to defer this item, and then instruct the applicant and staff, given that you perhaps have had an understanding of where the board may be thinking, to sort of work on this application again and bring it back for consideration. And I think it may give everyone a better understanding of some of those design implications that we have. We may have a better way of presenting the motion for approval, denial of the demolition. And I think it would perhaps remove some of the questions that may be in the board's mind presently. So.
Thank you, Mr. Baños. So we have a motion for a deferral. Is there a second? I'm going to ask one more time. Is there a second? Okay, Mr. Baños, there's no second. Does anybody wish to make another motion?
I'll make another motion then. So I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness, consistent with the comments that were made, or on the basis of consistent with the comments that were made by Ms. De Raimundo, which I'll incorporate by reference. But instructing, and I need your help with this, okay? And instructing the applicant to work with staff in reference to all the designed reservations that they have.
Mr. Baños, if I understand your motion, it would be to approve the design proposal for the demolition of the original auxiliary structure, additions and alterations to the residence and site work on the property located at 4722 Alhambra Circle, and to approve the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness with the conditions that the applicant work with staff to address staff's suggestions and incorporate those into the final design, as I understand that to be, that which include addressing the stucco, the window configuration, and the height of the building, among others.
I don't think we want to say suggestions. Can we say comments?
Okay, that's fine. It could be to incorporate staff's comments into the final design.
I'll amend my motion to be consistent with how it was outlined by Ms. Raimundo and by the city attorney's office.
So, Madam Pernas, is that clear direction for you, or do you need more? Because I'm not sure if it is.
Yeah, so I have some of the items listed that would be considered conditions if approval does move forward. So considering lowering the height of the addition, study the door and window type, style, and locations to be more consistent with the style of the building, of the original house, and consider regular spacing and type. This is all for the new addition. And then the glass would be our typical comment of glass to be clear, non-reflective, no tint. Roof tiles would be barrel tile, two-piece. Again, our regular comment. The stucco should be differentiated on the addition. And then those were the ones included within the report. If anyone wants to add to that, because I know Mr. Maxwell mentioned one item, but I don't know if that was part of the motion Mr. Baños made.
So far it's not. Right now we have what you just said, and that's why I'm asking if we have additional conditions.
Yeah,
on the
I'd like to
board.
have an amendment to that to the extent feasible, because it is structural. And I understand that the walls are clay tile for the most part, that to the extent feasible, the exterior walls, at the garage for the part not, and the house be incorporated into the new structure and show the stucco as it is now and not new, so that you can see, so it can be clearly seen, that these were incorporated.
I'll amend my motion.
Wait, Mr. Baños, so we have a motion based on the information that staff has just put into the record based on the report.
Correct.
Mr. Maxwell, is a friendly amendment to your motion. You can accept or refuse it.
So I was about to say that I accept Mr. Maxwell's friendly amendment to my motion. I'll incorporate by reference to my motion Ms. Parna's the criteria as he outlined it.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
Just a
Mr.
question.
Durana, please.
No question. We're just suggesting that they look at the option of keeping the original structure perimeter walls, right? On the garage is what your amendment is?
I understood the motion to be that to the extent feasible, that they incorporate the old walls of the current garage into the new addition to the extent feasible as determined by staff.
Yeah, that would also include the house.
And the house.
For the hyphen that goes out, yes.
So we have to the extent feasible, Mr. Rana. I have a similar comment, I would imagine.
I just think it's like leaves it ambiguous and how they're going to decide. What if staff says, yeah, we want the old walls, and they say, well, it doesn't work with our, like where they're just going to come back to us.
I'm not an engineer.
Could I just add one thing? If it's not feasible between, from the condition of the building and what we've heard today, would you be amenable to something that they would kind of outline, maybe within the stucco, some change that highlight the mass of the building? I don't know if that would make what you're trying to see, but usually we want the addition to read differently. I don't know if you want to see one portion of it to be
Are you
the garage.
thinking like kind of the ghost of the old structure?
Because it ends up, the garage will end up being kind of in the middle of the addition.
Well,
now.
part of it's going to be removed. 5 feet of it's going to be removed. Okay, but one wall, that's 5 feet off of currently 5 feet on the side, not the backyard. So the back lot is being reduced. So the wall is being reduced. But on the side yard, that wall is remaining.
Right,
Okay?
so that probably would be the only wall that would be physically
Would
visible, I
remain
guess.
if possible.
Okay.
And also where the hyphen is, okay, it's to that wall. So it appears to me on the plan that at the back of the house, exclusive of the hyphen is coming off completely, okay? And a new hyphen is being, and the new addition is being built into it.
So I think the addition is wider than the existing garage. And we might need to go back to the plan for that. But
I think that
but
the
on the
motion,
pool side.
if it's feasible, I think that's the working situation.
right.
If it's not feasible, it's not feasible.
But then we're not really agreeing to the design proposal with the additions and alterations. We're not really agreeing because there's so many requirements and conditions and unknowns.
Are we
I'm sorry,
talking
wait. So the existing garage and the new project are in different locations. So it's not there'll be fragments, is I think what you're mentioning. I would like to add maybe a potential friendly amendment to this friendly amendment is to the extent feasible as certified by a licensed structural engineer, because I'm not qualified to say whether you can keep it, and I would only trust a licensed structural engineer to certify that they can do it. If they can, great. If they can't, I'm out.
Yeah, I accept that friendly amendment to the amendment.
Yes, and I accept thereafter.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Banos, including everything that we just said. Is there a second?
Second.
Does anybody wish to add any friendly amendments to the motion?
Can I just say
Ms.
that
Spain.
I'm totally against doing that?
Yeah, we can.
I mean, if we're going to allow them to demolish this structure, then let them demolish the structure and build something good, other than trying to patchwork an old, I don't want to vote against it because they're going to get something, but I'm not in favor
Here's what I'll tell you. I
trying to do
think,
that.
I take Mr. Maxwell's intention.
It's totally good.
To say, let's preserve whatever we can of it. I think after just a brief discussion we've had after the feasibility of it might be unfeasible, okay? So I think it sort of answers its own question, okay? But if we will make a decision on your vote, Ms. Spain,
I just think we're making it worse.
So, Mr. Banos, we have a motion inclusive of that. Do you wish to amend it in any way?
let's amend my motion to not accept the friendly amendment by Mr. Maxwell if that's, and I understand Mr. Maxwell where they're coming from.
Ms.
So-
Rolando, is that acceptable as a seconder to the motion, or no?
I can withdraw my second if it moves the procedure along where we get to vote soon.
So, Ms. Rolando, all you have to say, yes, I second.
Do you accept the amendment, or would you wish to rescind your second?
Yes.
Which one? Accept the amendment?
To accept, withdraw the second. Then you can modify.
I have modified it.
So we have a new motion, as originally stated, excluding the item of keeping any remnant of the existing
Second.
garage. So we now have another second by Ms. Rolando. Are we clear? And I would like for staff or the city attorney to restate.
So again, my understanding of the motion is to approve the design proposal presented today and approve the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness with the conditions that the items that Ms. Pernas listed, including the stucco differential, the height, the window configuration, glass, roof tiles, those that were mentioned previously, that the staff's recommendations be addressed, or comments, I believe, comments be addressed prior to permitting.
Okay, is that clear?
That is clear to me and accept.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the item? All right, let's call the roll.
Mr. Durana,
Yes.
Ms. Dene,
Yes.
Ms. Spain,
Yes.
Ms. Rolando,
Yes.
Mr. Banos,
Yes.
Mr. Maxwell,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia Pons.
No, motion passes 6-1. We're going to take a 5-minute break, at which time I'm going to leave the meeting and pass the gavel to Vice Chair Maxwell. Thank you. 5 minutes.
Recording stopped.
So we're back down to 5.
Am I not on?
There we go.
I am now. I just heard it.
Someone from above turned it on.
Okay. All right, case file COA SP 2023-031. This is continued an application for the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness for the property at 1260 South Greenway Drive, a contributing resource within the Country Club of Coral Gables Historic District, legally described as lots 1 and 2, Block 5, Coral Gables Section E, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 8 at page 13 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida. The application requests approval for a variance from Article 2, Section 2-101D, Number 10C, for the proposed new driveway on South Greenway Drive.
Good evening, Mr.
A minute, ma'am. Mr. Maxwell, we've heard this particular project in several locations, and I think Ms. Raimondo needs to go. Do you think it's appropriate for us to sort of tabulate the board first, figure out where we may be on this, and then may take a quick motion and save everybody a little time?
Mr. Banos, I think we need to establish a record for this item, though it has been heard multiple times. It's a new hearing today. I think we can be expeditious in our presentations, but we do need to create a record.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I will be as quick
Please state your name and
as
address.
possible.
For the record.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Laura Russo with offices at 2334 Ponce de Leon Boulevard. I am here this evening representing Orlando Casariego and Maydel Santana, his wife, who are the owners of 1260 South Greenway Drive. Mr. Casariego also used to live at 1021 North Greenway Drive. He's very familiar with this neighborhood. And he still has family that resides there. I'm here with their architect, Eddie Llano. We were here back in May 15th when Mr. Llano presented the certificate of appropriateness for some additions and modifications to the and renovations for the structures. Those were passed with some conditions, which we have complied with, or will be complying with. And at that time, we requested a deferral for the variance for the driveway. So the request here is to ask for a semi-rectangular, not circular, might misquote somewhere along the line, but a semi-rectangular driveway that would provide vehicular access on South Greenway. And I have a little PowerPoint that'll make it a little bit easier, and I'll go as quickly as possible if we can start. That's not it. You have to get it loaded. That's fine.
It's going.
That Alhambra Circle property keeps coming up.
Could we skip to the item for 1260 South Greenway? Made it very long.
Ta-da.
There we go. And just for the record, as staff, Anna Pernas, Preservation Officer, staff had recommended approval for the special certificate of appropriateness for the driveway, including the variance per the staff report submitted on the record.
Was I here for this?
No, you came
This is the
after.
meeting? Okay,
Yes.
thank goodness. I thought I was losing my mind.
Right. I'm going to be as quickly as possible. Let's see, this is, okay. So the proposed driveway is, as I said, a semi-rectangular on South Greenway Drive. This is a current photo of the house prior to the renovation. It has a garage access, and again, this is the proposed site plan. You know what I'm going to have to do, guys? That computer is too small for me to look at. That's why I brought this, so I hate to say that, but aging has its...
We understand, Ms. Russo, we're all getting there, so.
So what you have before you is the site plan with the proposed driveway accessing. The next slide is to show you that while we are asking for some impervious driveway, we do have plenty of sod on the particular site. The next one is to give you a list of landscaping, existing landscaping that exists. And part of the difficulty here is that there are some mature oak trees. So if there had been a desire to try to get a driveway that would connect all the way to the garage, change the garage, have the front door of the garage on South Greenway, maybe we could do it, but we'd have to run over an oak tree to do it and have to ask for a side setback instead. This is the proposed landscaping plan so that you can see it will be very nicely landscaped. And then just running through a very similar situation directly across the street on North Greenway. This house was built without a driveway, and it also has the same condition, which is the side access. Here shows when they came before the board 2 times. The first time it wasn't so nice. Second time it turned out to be quite a nice addition of that sort of motor court. This is another house with, again, similar situation. It is located to the east of us, of the subject property. It has the same configuration. This house, we got copies of the plans. It did not have an original driveway. It does have a circular driveway, and it does have also the access of a garage on the side street. Another house on South Greenway as well is this is to the west of us. This is going toward Red Road. This house was originally designed with a driveway, has the same access, again, on the driveway. I have a letter here from Mr. Tim Plummer. Many of you know that he is an expert in traffic and has been. He's second generation. He lives in the area, but he wrote this letter for us with respect to the safety concerns. So one of my main arguments for the driveway is if this were maybe another street in Coral Gables, it wouldn't matter. But South Greenway, for those of you who don't live anywhere near it and don't have to traverse it, is one of the busiest, not only vehicular access, strollers, children, joggers, runners, and the main issue, and I was there last night, is that the sidewalk is only a single sidewalk, unlike Country Club Prado where it's double. The particular swale, the right-of-way swale portion, the grassed area, is narrower than anywhere else, and the road barely accommodates two-way traffic. And all during the day and all during the night, you have joggers, strollers, runners, scooters, bikers going from sidewalk to grass to driveway. And as we know now, with Amazon delivery and the post-off delivery, people love stopping in the middle of the road. To not have some sort of vehicular access is just dangerous on South Greenway. And so we make this plea that you please grant the request for the driveway. Just so you know, we also have a letter from the neighbor who would be most affected, which is the neighbor to the east. So she would be the one that would be having the cars coming in and out. They would probably still be parked on the swale, but now at least they could have cars parked on private property. And this is what the driveway would look like with the materials as shown. And it is my understanding, but we can do it for the public portion comment, that there is another neighbor who is willing to speak, who is on the Zoom. And we are happy to answer any questions. And once again, I respectfully request your approval for our variance for the driveway.
Thank you, Counselor. Sir, would you like to make any comments at all?
Only if you have.
Oh, and we have a sample of the material, because I know sometimes that's.
It'll be a coral stone driveway.
Thank you very much. Are there any letters of support or otherwise that have been received?
I think there's one person on Zoom who would like to speak.
I didn't receive anything in advance, but we may have public comment in the room or on Zoom.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Well, now, if there's not anything else, then we'll open this up to public comment at this time. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor or against of this, whether on locally or on Zoom?
Yeah, there's supposed to be someone on Zoom.
Do you know their name?
Luis Consuegra. I think he was on originally and he was
He's
sworn in.
Consuegra. I'm going to ask him to unmute and see if he is paying attention. Excuse me?
Yes, I've unmuted.
Okay, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Luis Consuegra. I'm a neighbor at 1301 Asturia. I'm not going to go over all the things that Ms. Russo went through, but say that I agree wholeheartedly with him. Not only is it a lot of pedestrian on South Greenway, as we know, but on Madrid, which is a side street, there's a lot of pedestrians that walk through there to get to South Greenway. So there's pedestrians everywhere. Now, my house at 1301, if I sit in my back porch, I'm looking towards the golf course, and then to the east is Mr. Casariego's property. So I'm literally feet away from his property, and I wanted to participate in this to let the board know that I wholeheartedly support this project of the well, not circular driveway, but the driveway that's being proposed on South Greenway to his property. If there are any questions, I'm glad to answer any that anyone may have.
Thank you, Mr. Consuegra. Is there anyone else in the audience that would wish to speak for or against this item? If not, we're going to close the public hearing portion of this, and this comes back to the board. Board members, questions of the applicant?
I would like
The
to make a
motion.
motion. Yeah.
Hearing none, we'll close that. I'd like to hear,
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve with the conditions noted above, which I think the only condition, Anna, is the paver material. And so are you okay with this material? All right. The design proposal for a new driveway on the property located at 1260 South Greenway Drive, a contributing resource within the Country Club of Coral Gables Historic District, legally described as lots 1 and 2, Block 5, Coral Gables, Section E, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 8, page 13 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, and approve the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness, and a motion to approve a variance to allow a new driveway on South Greenway Drive with no access to a garage, carport, or porte-cochere versus driveways and associated curb cuts shall only be permitted when providing access to a garage, carport, or porte-cochere as required by Article 2, Section 2-101D, 10C of the Coral Gables zoning code.
Second.
Madam Attorney, do we need two motions?
I think it's appropriate to incorporate them into one. That's
Very
fine.
good.
Because if it fails, there's only 5 people here.
Well, okay.
I
Very good. Do I have
second.
a second?
Yes.
Mr. Banos? Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Spain, seconded by Mr. Banos. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Durana?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Rolando?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Banos?
Yes.
Ms. Spain?
Yes.
And Mr. Maxwell?
Yes. Motion
Thank you.
approved.
Thank you
5-0.
very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have the next item. We have case file COA SP 24-022, an application for the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness for the property located at 1006 Madrid Street, a local historic landmark, legally described as Lot 16, Block 51, Coral Gables, Granada section, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 8 at page 13, Miami-Dade County, Florida. Application requests design approval for additions and alterations to the residence and site work. The application requests approval for a variance from Article 8, Section 8-203B for ground area coverage.
Thank you. Could we have the presentation, please? CGTV, could we have the presentation, please? Thank you. This property was officially granted the status of a Coral Gables cottage in 2001, and the property was designated as a local historic landmark on July 20th, 2022. The one-story addition consists of a master bedroom suite and 2 additional bedrooms sharing a Jack and Jill bathroom. The addition is primarily under a flat roof with a higher hipped roof projection over the master bedroom at the southeast corner and reopening the original 217 square foot covered porch. A variance has also been requested of Article 8, Section 8-203B of the Coral Gables zoning code for exceeding the maximum ground area coverage. As per the zoning code, one of the incentives of the Coral Gables cottage designation is Coral Gables cottages shall be permitted to occupy up to 48% of the building site. Auxiliary buildings or structures, whether freestanding or attached to the primary building, including swimming pools, may occupy additional site area provided. However, that total ground coverage area for all structures shall not exceed 58% of the site. It is the intent of the cottage regulation to maintain and preserve the architectural quality and character of the Coral Gables traditional small-scale residential neighborhoods by encouraging the preservation of these existing Coral Gables cottage-style houses. Staff finds that the restoration of the porch and reallocating the square footage to another location on the site would be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of the zoning code and maintains the ground coverage below 58% as permitted for other Coral Gables cottages. Staff recommends approval with the conditions listed of the special certificate of appropriateness and approval of the variance request.
Are there any questions of staff? All right. Is there a presentation?
I had asked the professor to do it, but he said it was running late. So, my name's Peter Kiligian. I'm the architect for the project. I'm joined by the homeowners, Giovanni and Mirna Ortiz. We've been at this quite a long time because we really worked in trying to get their programmatic requirements into a Part T that made sense and was complementary to the existing house. Can we get my PowerPoint? I'm going to be very fast. I know everybody's, and I think it's a very easy. I mean, a very simple addition to understand. The house is quintessential Northern Gables, beautiful. It's in need of many repairs, and this addition will allow the entire property to be restored. Madrid, North Gables, again. Our biggest contribution, I think, with this is returning the porch to its original glory, which is open. And I think that's quintessential Coral Gables, and I think it's very important for the streetscape. So this is a rendering of the front. The next few renderings are going to show how the front of the house really has not been changed. So as you walk by the street or you drive by the street, it's basically the same thing. The additions are to the rear, 75 feet away from the front, and impact the streetscape and impact the existing house minimally. That's a straight-on view.
It's a beautiful plan.
So we were able to create a side yard garden, a side yard house by adding a simple bar at the rear of the property, differentiate some of the spaces in order to break up the massing, and try to alter the existing as little as possible in a pragmatic way for modern living, as you heard from the previous. And here you can see how far back the addition is set. So again, these are all our site plans and diagrams. It's very straightforward. You can see it there in the floor plan. It's a simple bar. Amazed we were able to get so much program in such small space. and that's why we're asking for a very, very slight 3% increase in the lot coverage. We met with zoning. We were hoping that either the porch or the carport could be looked at as an auxiliary attached building. They didn't agree. So we still feel we're under what cottage is allowed to be in Coral Gables, which is 58%. It's just how you interpret it. So we have, our microfilm, how it is today, and you can see we're bringing it back to as close as possible to the original. We're separating the addition. There's a natural break in the back. There's going to be a differentiation stucco. The windows are not getting the window sills. There's very nuanced changes. But the vocabulary is still Coral Gables. They're cousins, but they're not. It's not a copy. So that's really our approach to these kind of houses. Is how do you do something that's complementary without copying the details that are in the existing house, but maintain the language so it doesn't look like a unicorn. And I went fast, so I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you. Are there any questions by the board?
I have a question. Have you seen the conditions that the staff has put into the,
I think that the conditions are typical of what I get in my projects is we're always rushing. So I think it's raised muttons, differentiation and
do
stucco.
you have any issues with any of them?
I have no issues with any of them. They even caught a couple of drafting errors that we fixed for the presentation, and I'm very grateful for them. And we worked very closely with them. This was almost a year process because originally the owners wanted to do different things, and I think that we came to a great conclusion here with everybody being happy. Hopefully, you guys find it
The owners have
acceptable.
indicated also, for the record, that they accept the conditions.
Yes, they do. They do.
Okay. Is there any other presentation that you'd wish to make?
I can go back to any one of the renderings or drawings if you need to, but
No, we don't need
I
to go
think
back to anything.
you guys are spent.
We're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, well, great. Is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom who would like to comment about this, positively or negatively, in opposition or in favor? Is there any public comment that has been received? Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing portion of that and take this back to staff. Board?
I would like to make a motion to approve, okay? Motion to approve with the conditions outlined in the staff reports, a design and proposal for addition and alterations to the residence and site work on the property located at 1006 Madrid Street, a local historic landmark legally described as Lot 16, Block 51, Coral Gables, Granada section, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 8 at page 113 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida, and approve with the conditions noted above the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness, and a motion to approve a variance to allow the Coral Gables Cottage residents to have a maximum ground area coverage for a principal building of approximately 2,684 square feet, 51.1% of the lot, versus Coral Gables Cottage shall be permitted to occupy up to 48% of the building site, 2,520 square feet for this site, as required by the Article 8, Section 8-203B of the Coral Gables zoning code.
Here we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Mrs. Spain. Would you call the roll, please?
Okay. Mr. Durana?
Yes.
Ms. Rolando?
Yes.
Mr. Banos?
Yes.
Ms. Spain?
Yes.
And Mr. Maxwell?
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for coming today. Excellent.
Thank you for being
excellent
here.
Design. Okay, the final item we have today is case file COASP 2024-021, an application for the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness for the property at 1148 Alhambra Circle, a contributing resource within the Alhambra Circle Historic District, legally described as lots 1 and 2, Block 15, Coral Gables, Section C, according to the plat thereof, Plat Book 8, page 26, Miami-Dade County. The application requests design approval for additions and alterations to the residence and site work.
Good afternoon or evening. If we could get the PowerPoint up, thank you. So as mentioned, this is a contributing structure within the Alhambra Circle Historic District, and it's also a designated historic landmark. The applicant is requesting design approval for a 2-story addition of a living room, primary bedroom, covered terrace, balcony, and interior remodeling. The project also includes the removal of non-original features and the restoration of features. The proposed 2-story addition will be to the side east of the home. It will be located behind the extant kitchen, infilling an essentially asymmetrical U-shaped portion of the home between the bedroom behind the garage to the south and the bedroom to the north. While the roof of the new 2-story addition will be visible from Alhambra Circle, it does not adversely impact the historic integrity of the 2-story home, and staff is recommending approval with the conditions listed in the report.
Thank you.
We still need the presentation up, please. Oh, there we go.
There, hey, it actually worked first time.
Yep.
last one, so hi, good evening. My name is Garo Betancourt. I'm architect and co-founder of Arco Architecture, located at 2490 Coral Way, Suite 301, Miami, Florida, 33145. I want to thank the board for taking the time to hear our presentation today. The site is located at 1148 Alhambra Circle at the corner with Columbus Boulevard. The project consists of a 1,500 square foot total two-story addition to an existing two-story historic house built in 1925. The project was previously approved by the board under a different architect and with a different scope, as you will see. This is what the house currently looks like from the primary and secondary front, and what it looks like from the backyard where the addition takes place in that existing nook. I want to note that we work very closely with the historic department staff to ensure we are proposing something that works with the character of the house. Here you can see the existing and proposed site plan side by side, showing where the addition is taking place, which is the same from the previous approved proposal. In the next few slides, I'll show you the existing versus original approved design first, and then existing versus the new design for comparison. On the left is the existing ground level plan, and on the right is the original approved design. Apart from minor interior kitchen layout changes, we cut back on the terrace, which now serves as a private balcony for upstairs. The original design was a one-story addition with an interior remodel of the existing second level. But the client decided to modify the scope of work in order to add a true primary bedroom suite, which now has a bigger balcony above the proposed terrace. For the elevations in the next slides, the bottom elevation is always the existing. This is the front facing Alhambra. And you can see how the second level addition complements the existing house. This is the secondary front. In the original approved design, there is a wall being added for privacy, which we kept. We believe the second level addition ties the front massing of the house to the rear one level portion. The side elevations facing east towards the backyard. We created breaks in the railings by adding posts matching and aligning to the columns that we're proposing. And you can see we added arches there to go with the existing house. And finally, the rear, which faces the neighbor to the south. And the new two-story addition at the top, we emphasize the gable end extension by bringing it out 8 inches, as commented by the Board of Architects. And we also removed a small existing window that ended right at the addition wall, which is here. This window had to go here. This is the house. This is what the house will look like from the corner of Alhambra and Columbus. Here's from the secondary front. And here's the two-story addition from the backyard. Finally, as I mentioned in the beginning, we work very closely with the historic department staff to ensure the new design is cohesive with the existing historic house. And with that, I conclude my presentation, and I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Or I should say the applicant's architect from the board? All right, very well. Is the owner in agreement with all of the staff's recommendations?
Yes.
Okay, and you're willing to do that?
Correct.
Okay, yes. Very good. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anyone here that would wish to speak to or against this, in opposition to this? Is there anyone on Zoom that would wish to do that? Hearing none, we will close the public portion. All right, board members, are there any questions that you would like to raise? All right. Motion? Ms. Spain?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve with conditions that are noted in the staff report, the design proposal for the infill construction of a two-story addition, a covered terrace, balconies, and interior remodeling, as well as the removal of non-original features and the restoration of features on the property located at 1148 Alhambra Circle, a contributing resource within the Alhambra Circle Historic District, legally described as lots 1 and 2, Block 15, Coral Gables, Section C, according to the plat thereof, as recorded in Plat Book 8 at page 26 of the Public Records of Miami-Dade County, Florida, and approve the issuance of a special certificate of appropriateness with the conditions noted.
We have a motion by Ms. Spain. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. Rolando. Okay, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Durana,
Yes.
Mr. Banos,
Yes.
Ms. Rolando,
Yes.
Ms. Spain,
Yes.
and Mr. Maxwell.
Yes. Motion approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and
Have a good
thank you
night.
for your patience
Yeah,
this
no-
evening.
no worries. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, do we have any old business? Ms. Pernas, do we have any old business that we need to address, other than the continuing saga of the 1130 property on Sevilla?
Oh.
Now in its fourth or fifth year?
So we actually were out at that property yesterday with the building department director and structural engineer and Kara and myself and the code board, attorney for that property. So we are trying to figure out a process. It was formally cited for demolition by neglect in April by the code enforcement board, and it's already passed, meeting any criteria for
You'll keep us
meeting its
abreast,
conditions.
right?
Yes.
Thank you.
If you haven't already, ideally, if I could get dates from you all for the orientation. Right now, it's leaning towards September 17th from the ones that I have received. If that's okay, I will set it and just send out an email.
Are there any objections to anyone here? Okay, you can all attend.
I don't, the September,
September 17th?
that's a Tuesday?
Yes.
Yes, it's in the email.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All
You got
right.
the email, Mr. Bunner? Yes.
And that is it. I will add the item that the vice mayor had presented today to you all. If you want an update from that, I'm
Gonna bring
happy
that
to.
up right now.
Okay, okay.
Thank,
One question. On the 17th, do you have a date?
a time.
What time? We were considering to try to do it after work, so after 5 o'clock, 5:30, depending on what
About
people.
how long do you think it would, about how long do you think it would run? 2 hours?
Yes, probably maximum 2 hours.
So maybe we'll have
We'll
some.
plan presentation. Our stuff will, we'll probably try to keep it quick, but
And so we'll have sandwiches or something.
we'll find some dinner.
All right, I know you'll do the
I
best
never
you
fed
can.
the board. I started feeding them, and then
They got
once they
hungry?
were full,
I mean,
it would last forever.
I'll welcome everybody after the thing to my house, and you can all, I'll feed everybody in my
Buying the
house.
beers. Okay, is there anything else?
Nope, that's it from me.
Thank you very much.
Motion to
Okay, I have a
adjourn.
new business item, and it's been given to you by the vice mayor. I'd like everyone to, I'm going to ask that this be put on the agenda as a discussion item for our next meeting in September.
Yes.
And I'd like everyone to consider this. First of all, I'd like you to know that this does not require drastic action, okay? This is not a life or death situation. The building is undergoing work. This kind of thing happens all the time with buildings like this. So take a look at this. The idea and the intent is that this board will become much more involved in the preservation planning and programming of this building over time. And this is an important step to take, and I encourage all of you to thoroughly read it, to understand it, and to ask any questions that you can, okay? And if necessary, we'll arrange to go downstairs and take a look at it. So, and feel free to do that if you wish, and
Is
you
this
can
about
make
the
them.
concrete? I only read like a sentence of that.
I'm sorry?
In the manager's office where the concrete was falling
Yes.
down on the
Yes.
assistant city manager's head.
Yes.
When I
There's
was
a-
assistant city manager.
Ms. Rolando?
There's a Spalding on the building?
May I suggest that we have a tour of City Hall?
You may, and that would be a wonderful thing, and we can arrange that at some time.
I mean, if you wanted to, after hours, as part of the orientation or whatever. But, I think most of us have seen the public spaces, but we really haven't seen the innards. Or maybe Donna has.
Trust me, I've seen the innards.
Donna could.
Mr. Rolando,
She's looked under the
we could certainly work on doing that in a way that complies with the Florida Sunshine Law, which gets a little complicated, or of course, I'm sure, subject to availability and time, you could all do that individually. But to do it as a whole, we'll have to make sure that that meeting is appropriately sunshine.
Just notice it and allow everybody to come along. It's okay.
And
It's not
just
a big
so
deal.
that you know, there is an agenda item for the commission that Vice Mayor had added to the, in kind of as a response to the work that needs to be done, the additional structural repairs and all of that.
All right. Ms. City Attorney, would it be appropriate for us to invite the Landmarks Preservation Board to this?
You could certainly request a joint meeting to discuss. Like I said, a tour gets more complicated just for meeting minute purposes and having it noticed to the public. But if you want to have a joint meeting, you could certainly request a joint meeting of that board to discuss.
Or a joint tour?
Or a joint tour, but again,
Understanding
a
the
joint
sunshine
meeting.
laws.
A joint meeting sounds better to me.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, is everybody clear on that? Is there any other business? Is there any new business or commission items or discussion items? Hearing none and seeing that everybody's tablet is folded completely, may I have a motion for dismissal, please?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Thank you all very much. Hope we got you.
Recording stopped.